All right, good morning, folks. We are back. Welcome back to Pangburn. I hope you are all well today. Today we're going to look at other debate reaction clips that have been circulating online. Hello. And yeah, we'll do some thorough analysis of other people's reactions. I have a couple in mind that I want to review, but you guys aren't able to share links with me in the YouTube chat here, but give me the titles for the videos or who did the review, and I will find them and review them today. I want to make sure we get at least some of the main ones that have caught a lot of traction and see how well thought out they are. Howdy, howdy, folks. Smash that like button when you get into the room. Thank you, thank you. Okay. Yeah, we are going to start with Warren Smith here. He's created quite a lot of content related to the event, so we will start with him and take a look. I don't know much about Warren Smith. I'm somewhat new to what he does, so let's take a look.
Destiny finally sat down with Konstantin Kisin, and this one does not disappoint. When you strip away the filler, the ranting, you can suddenly see the strategy that he's using.
In the last 35 years, more people came to Britain than came to Britain in the previous 2 millennia.
So there must be a reason. What is the reason? Destiny is going to try and divert away from that at all costs.
All right. So just so everyone's up to speed, we did do the full run-through analysis last night. It was 5.5 hours. Many of you stuck with me for the whole thing. Thank you for that. I appreciate your support. And yeah, we went through everything with a fine-tooth comb in great detail. So a lot of this stuff should be fresh in our mind. And as we did through yesterday's analysis video, we will be rewinding, listening again, making sure we get things right when reacting to this stuff.
To Britain than came to Britain in the previous 2 millennia.
So there must be a reason. What is the reason? Destiny is going to try and see the strategy that he's using.
In the last 35 years, more people came to Britain than came to Britain in the previous 2 millennia.
Okay, so we actually can't find any empirical data to support this claim when we were doing the fact checking. So right off the bat, this claim is not a factual claim as presented by Konstantin Kisin. So we're going to be coming across a lot of that in these reviews, I'm sure, because what I find often happens is if you are a big fan of someone or they are on your side, many people just take what they say as gospel if it sounds good, if it matches their vibes-based epistemological standards. And that's a big problem. So in this case, this reviewer isn't stopping to check or to make sure that this is actually the case, that this is a fact. And again, maybe he has, and maybe the empirical data will be shared at some point. But based on my research, there is nothing to demonstrate this. But I am a fallibilist, and I'm always open to update. But people should get in the habit of, when a fact is stated and you're reviewing something, verify it. Or if you're the speaker saying the fact, you should provide some justification as to how you came across this fact or how you come to know this. What is your justification for warranting belief here? Welcome back, everybody. Make sure you smash that like button when you get into the room. Thank you for being with me this morning. Jester Investor says, you would need to dig deeper than ChatGPT for historical estimates. So let me clear up something about AI tools large language models. When you are using these things, you always need to make sure you are asking for academic citations or references if you really want to be doing thorough fact checking. And you can do that, and these systems will provide that. Just because something's coming from ChatGPT doesn't mean it's not deep. My ChatGPT is connected to Google Scholar, JSTOR. I use Scholar GPT. So it is by far the most accurate research tool when it comes to fact checking on the internet. It's far more accurate than anything you're going to get out of anyone else's mind. It doesn't matter if they're an expert on a given topic. I've fact checked many experts using my system as it is set up, and it shows where there is a better way of demonstrating a particular fact they're trying to communicate, or it shows where they actually aren't getting the facts quite clear. So you have to use these tools correctly, but you must learn to use these tools or you will be left behind. You will be left behind in your journey to garner greater, higher resolution levels of conceptual organization for yourself. You will be left behind from a knowledge standpoint. Use these tools as your learning teammate, but make sure you're using the tools correctly. Just like using the internet. When the internet dropped, people were worried that, because you can find a bunch of bullshit on the internet, that means the internet cannot be trusted. This same kind of fallacious thinking often arises when talking about AI tools or large language models. But don't be fooled. Learn these tools, use them. Once you start rolling with them, I'm almost certain you're going to find that it is the best learning tool you've ever used in your life. But you got to use the tools correctly. Don't just use the tools to confirm your bias for you. Some of these tools will just tell you what you want to hear. They'll start saying like, well, you are possibly right here. And anyone that follows me and my, when we're talking within the domain of epistemology, within the domain of knowledge, possibility ought not weigh into that domain. Plausibility should. Possibility is reserved for modal argumentation, which is should be viewed as a lot different than epistemic standards. But I thought I should throw that out there. ChatGPT, if used correctly, can dig deeper really than any search engine on the internet. One of the reasons is because through Scholar GPT, you're connected to all of the, whatever journal platforms, like academic journal platforms you might have access to. So, nothing should be viewed as gospel, but it's crazy to me that like when people review things like this, that the fact checking is just, it's just non-existent. A lot of times it's because they're just accepting what this person's saying. Sometimes they've heard something repeated so much within their bias circle, who they're generally surrounded by, who they generally talk to, that it just seems like this is an obvious fact. It's self-evident, I hear all the time. But it's a big problem. Well, welcome back, everyone. Thanks for being with me.
So there must be a reason. What is the reason? Destiny is going to try and divert away from that at all costs.
So let's see if Destiny tries to divert away from the reason. But the reason was never asked by Konstantin Kisin here. Konstantin Kisin just made a statement that he believes to be a fact. He didn't ask Destiny, what do you think the reason is for this?
Because I hear a lot of these words will be like, it was a lot of people.
Well, hold on.
Like, what does that mean?
Yeah, I'm explaining
away from that at all costs.
Because I hear a lot of these words will be like, it was a lot of people.
Well, hold on.
Like, what does that mean? Yeah.
I'm explaining it. So
Okay.
more people in 35 years than 2,000 years. That sounds like quite a lot of people. Is
Not
that fair?
necessarily. No.
Is that fair?
No, not really. Right.
There's no such thing as a change that is too.
So the first part was just untrue.
The last 35 years, more people came.
So it sounds like Warren Smith has already made a mistake right at the beginning of this video in comprehending what's being talked about.
Came to Britain than came to Britain in the previous 2 millennia.
So there must be a reason. What is the reason? Destiny is going to try and divert away from that at all costs.
There must be a reason. What is the reason? Destiny's going to try to divert away from that at all costs. The reason wasn't asked. That's not a burden on Destiny's shoulder at this moment.
Because I hear a lot of these words will be like, it was a lot of people.
Well, hold
I was
on.
like, what does that mean? Yeah.
I'm explaining it. So
Okay.
more people in 35 years than 2,000 years, that sounds like quite a lot of people. Is
Not
that fair?
necessarily, no.
Is that fair?
No, not really, right?
So, again, the fact that Konstantin is shocked here is really weird, because he's saying this sounds like quite a lot, doesn't he? He expects someone to just automatically agree that it's quite a lot. But if we're trying to follow the rationale here, we need to understand the goal of the rationale. The goal of the rationale has not been stated here by Konstantin Kisin. He needs to say, this seems like a lot in comparison to X. It's but there, when it sounds like this is just, instead of stating a fact, he's there's some normativity creeping in, right? In that there's a value statement being placed here. So like sounds like a lot, just like if it's like someone's smoking two joints per day, and let's say someone who doesn't smoke weed says 2 joints per day. Man, that sure sounds like a lot. And my Rastafarian brother from down in St. Lucia, Jamaica, or the Caribbean, St. Lucia Caribbean, says, no man, 2 joints per day, not enough. That's not a lot. So there's a disagreement of what a lot is there between these two people. So that's kind of what Destiny is poking at. There's a normative value being introduced here, but this is going over the head of Konstantin, as we discussed last night in the review, and seems to be going over the head of Warren Smith here.
There's no such thing as a change that is too drastic. There's no such thing as a change that is too drastic too quickly, because, well, everything changes.
So this is not at all what Destiny just said or inferred. I don't know how Warren Smith just got this. What is he listening to?
There's no such thing as a change that is too drastic too quickly, because, well, everything changes.
This is Kathy Newman, by the way. You know, when a lot of people make fun of Kathy Newman, which rightfully so, she was strawmanning Jordan Peterson. But when Kathy Newman's like, I forget exactly what the quote is, but she's basically like, oh, so what you're saying is women suck. When Jordan Peterson's trying to deliver some information and his perspective. And that's not what Jordan Peterson said. Jordan Peterson didn't say women suck. And that's not the actual quote, but I'm trying to give you an example. But this is a misrepresentation of what Destiny just said. And he's leading his audience to believe that he is responding to something that was just said. There's 474,000 views on this video. Can you imagine that?
2,000 years, that sounds like quite a lot of people. Is
Not
that fair?
necessarily, no.
Is that fair?
No, not really, right?
There's no such thing as a change that is too drastic too quickly, because, well, everything changes. This is actually postmodernism.
Postmodernism? Good Lord. I honestly don't know what he's getting at. I don't think he knows what postmodernism is. Do we have to go through postmodernism today? Well, okay, let's do this. I want to read this stuff into the record so that it's here. And I would prefer to get it right here. So postmodernism is a broad intellectual and cultural movement that became especially influential in the mid to late 20th century. At its core, it is skeptical of big, universal stories about truth, progress, morality, reason, or human nature. It often argues that what people treat as truth is shaped by language, power, culture, and historical context rather than discovered in a totally neutral way. Okay, a simple way to put it, modernism often says there is truth order, progress, and rational structure. Postmodernism often replies, be careful. What counts as truth or order may depend on perspective, social systems, and power. So as a kind of an example that I'm familiar with, Jordan Peterson is a Christian postmodernist. You know, all that lensing he does by like, I'm going to view Christianity through this psychological lensing because it speaks to me and it's true and it shows how human the Gospels are. So when you do that, that's postmodernism right there. What Jordan Peterson is doing. So just as a real world example, many of you are probably familiar with Jordan Peterson, but his take on Christianity, a lot of his detractors from the faith are going to say Jordan Peterson is engaging in some kind of postmodern lensing that is just him reading his own stuff through what he knows scientifically into the gospel. All right, let's continue with this.
Changes. This is actually postmodernism.
So yeah, no, what was just said there is not postmodernism. That's wild.
You don't think that more people coming into a country in 35 years than had come in the previous 2,000 years is quite a lot?
I just think that statement is like vacuous and meaningless. When we say quite a lot, should it have been less?
Who can really say what a lot is? It's just a...
Okay. What up, everyone? Make sure you smash that like button when you get into the room.
Quite a lot. Should it have been less?
Who can really say what a lot is? It's just a social construct. Everything's always changing.
So that's what he's getting at. Who can say what a lot is? Things are also always changing. That's what he thinks postmodernism is, to state that things are always changing. And also it's like Dusty's not saying that a lot can't exist here. He's asking what is meant by a lot in this context. So he's trying to get Konstantin Kisin to complete the line from the claim of a lot or seems like a lot to the other point of the rationale, the goal point. So, come out with it.
It's just a social construct. Everything's always changing.
If more people have come into a country in 35 years than have come in 2,000 years...
And I just have to state for the record, we've looked into this thoroughly, and there is no empirical data to support this fact. I just need to say that again.
That is objectively a lot. Now, you might think it's a good thing.
No empirical data to support this professed fact from Konstantin Kisin.
I like ice cream, and if I eat a tub of ice cream, I'm not going to say that's not a lot of ice cream. I still like it, but it's a lot of ice cream.
So it matters from what perspective. A tub of ice cream is not a lot of ice cream to a ice cream parlor that goes through like 100 tubs per day or whatever it is, or to an ice cream manufacturer. But for someone who wants to go in for an ice cream cone, if someone's like, would you like a whole tub of ice cream in an ice cream cone? Yeah, that would be a lot. But we have a lot more information in that example.
This is what I enjoy about making these videos, is that I can edit
it, but it's a lot of ice cream.
This is what I enjoy about making these videos, is that I can edit away the filler, and when you do, these dynamics suddenly become so visible.
So he edited away context here, is what he's calling filler. I would, my critique here to Warren, well, first of all, he's not tracking philosophically what's happening here, why there's an impasse. And so, more philosophical training, logic training, all this kind of stuff, higher resolution from where he's at right now. So he's, and when you're editing things, you got to be careful not to edit out necessary context. I'm not sure exactly how much necessary context was edited out here. I don't have the main video up or anything like that, but you do have to be careful of that. And maybe some of that is why he's being misled. But a lot of the issues here, the comprehension issues, are just fundamental.
To be clear, when you say a lot, that's a normative value that's with respect to some kind of norm or mean. When you say a normative value that's with respect to some kind of norm or mean. When you say a lot.
Oh yeah, compared to before.
Yeah,
compared
that's
to the entire
objectively,
span
yeah,
of the
that is
history of this
objectively true. It's just kind of a meaning.
Compared to before.
Yeah,
compared
that's
to the entire
objectively,
span
yeah.
of,
When you say a lot.
Oh yeah, compared
Sorry,
to before.
let me go back
value
here.
that's
I
with
was
respect to
disconnected for a
some
second.
kind of norm or mean. When you say a lot.
Oh yeah, compared to before.
Yeah,
compared
that's
to the entire
objectively,
span
yeah,
of the
that is
history of this
objective.
country.
So if he's just saying that this is a bigger number than before, then that's fine. Destiny's not going to not agree with that, or I'm not, or nobody's going to disagree with that. This is a bigger number than it was before. And that is a big number in comparison to this number. Those are claimed. But when you say a lot, you're implying that there is, something. If we imagine like a bucket of water, right? What would be a lot of water in that bucket? Would it be overflowing? Maybe not. Would it be 3/4 full? Oh, I don't know. Maybe half full, maybe a quarter full. If you don't connect the dots of where this normative statement is coming from, this normative qualifier, then you're not going to get someone to agree with it, and that's what's happening here.
Objectively true. It's just kind of a meaningless statement. Like
So
everything is a lot
you've
more
accepted
than the
that
past
what I'm saying is
2 millennia.
objectively true. I'm great. Compared to before.
Yeah,
compared
that's
to the entire
objectively,
span
yeah,
of the
that is
history of this country.
objectively true. It's just kind of a meaningless statement. Like
So
everything is a lot
you've
more
accepted
than the
that
past
what I'm saying
2
is
millennia.
objectively
Yeah.
true. I'm great.
Okay, so and Konstantin Kisin, it seems like he thinks that Destiny has now accepted that what he was originally saying is objectively true. The a lot part isn't. That's the normative part. The Destiny just agreed to the number distinction there, that yes, the number is much bigger now than it once was, which is a descriptive claim. But that's why Destiny here is saying, like, yeah, okay, that part is objectively true, but it's a meaningless statement in and of itself. That's what he's getting at.
Correct. Yes. So it's a meaningless statement, but yes.
All he can do is try and paint the picture that the statement a lot doesn't really mean anything.
But it's all.
No, that is not what he said. Again, Warren Smith, I don't know what you're smoking here. So he didn't say a lot doesn't mean anything. He's actually saying it means something, but I need to know what you mean by that when you claim it, because it's Konstantin making the claim that this is a lot. So the burden is on him to explain what he means. So
So it's a meaningless statement, but yes.
All he can do is try and paint the picture that the statement a lot doesn't really mean anything.
But
yikes. So he's so far, okay, I made it in 50 seconds, but this guy is not a good thinker. He needs a lot of fundamental work. He's not understanding even the burden of proof here, who's making the claim. So let's continue.
But it's also true objectively, the entire swathes of this city
Doesn't really mean anything.
But it's also true objectively, the entire swathes of this city are no longer inhabited by the people who used to live here.
So Konstantin goes on to show why it's important.
More people come to Britain illegally today than came legally when I came here in 1996.
He cannot contend with what Konstantin
why
laid
it's
out.
important?
Konstantin goes on to show why it's important.
Entire swathes of this city are no longer inhabited by the people who used to live here.
So Konstantin goes on to show why it's important.
More
He's still just describing, facts here. Facts as he perceives them. What?
are no longer inhabited by the people who used to live here.
So Konstantin goes on to show why it's important.
More people come to Britain illegally today than came legally when I came here in 1996.
he's not showing why it's important. He's making descriptions, not prescriptions. So Warren Smith also seems to not understand the difference between descriptions and prescriptions. Now, this is a very common issue in I would say like pop discourse, but this is something that you're going to learn very quickly once you start studying logic and higher order argumentation, and specifically propositional logic and things like this. So this Warren Smith really needs to get down to studying.
Cannot contend with what Konstantin
legally when I came here in 1996.
He cannot contend with what Konstantin laid out at the very beginning.
So the prompt, it has to do with basically can a country's culture, whatever, survive mass migration? Illegal immigrants are not mass migrating here. The mass migration.
They are.
So
I just told you more illegal immigrants come here every year now than legal immigrants came here 30 years ago.
Destiny then pivots his strategy to claim that, well, the number of legal immigrants is so high. Of course, the number of illegal
country's culture, whatever.
Let me go back here. I'm going to pull up my my fact-checking document for part 1. How's it going, everybody? Make sure you smash that like button when you get into the room. Nice to be with you all. Where is my trusty bit of notes here? Oh, my baby's up from his nap. I hear him. Okay. Let's make sure we got this ready. Okay, we'll get back to it now.
not contend with what Konstantin laid out at the very beginning.
So the prompt, it has to do with
Let's go back a bit
statement,
here.
but yes.
All he can do is try and paint the picture that the statement "a lot" doesn't really mean anything.
We
but it's
already
also true
debunked
objectively,
that.
the entire swathes of this city are no longer inhabited by the people who used to live here.
So Konstantin goes on to show why it's important.
More people come to Britain illegally today than came legally when I came here in 1996.
He cannot
There was no prescriptive statement there. Konstantin didn't say that this is why this information is important.
contend with what Konstantin laid out at the very beginning.
So the prompt, it has to do with basically can a country's culture, whatever, survive mass migration? Illegal immigrants are not mass migrating here. The mass migration.
They are.
So
I just
then-
told you more illegal immigrants come here every year now than legal immigrants came here 30 years ago.
All right, let's take a look at that. I'm pretty sure I have that one right here. Okay, so the claim is more, by Konstantin Kisin, more people come to Britain illegally every year than came legally when I came in 1996, right? Let's just make sure we get that right from him. I just want to make sure that that's the one.
Immigrants are not mass migrating here. The mass migration.
They are.
So
I just
then-
told you more illegal immigrants come here every year now than legal immigrants came here 30 years ago.
Okay, yeah, so 30 years ago, 96. Okay, so the verdict here is not reliably established from the available official numbers and likely too glib. So official Home Office data for the year ending June 2024 recorded 38,784 detected irregular arrivals, most by small boat. This is substantial, but comparing detected irregular arrivals in 1 year with all legal immigration in 1996 requires a clean apples to apples historical series, which the speaker did not provide in this case, Konstantin Kisin. The Home Office's more recent irregular arrival figures are real, but the cross-period comparison was presented more confidently than the evidence warrants. And our main source here is gov.uk. On the page irregular migration to the UK year ending June 2024, and how many people come to the UK via illegal entry. Illegal entry routes. Okay, so that has some of the relevant information there. Okay, so but the verdict there was, this isn't reliably established from the available official numbers. So again, the facts here are not reliable as presented.
Then legal immigrants came here 30 years ago.
Destiny then pivots his strategy to claim that, well, the number of legal immigrants is so high, of course the number of illegal immigrants is going to be high. Therefore, you have nothing to complain about.
So then are the legal ones mass migrating, or what? Is it just...
The legal immigrants are also mass migrating. It's possible for them both to be
like
mass
10
migrating.
to 1. You don't see any difference between a legal immigrant versus an illegal immigrant?
Well, of course I do.
Okay.
But they are both mass migrating here. They're both coming here in unprecedented numbers.
Okay. There was a lot of fact checking in this first section, so. Okay, great.
Now he's going to try and attack the very
They're both coming here in unprecedented numbers.
Now he's going to try and attack the very concept of unprecedented. Everything is unprecedented. Therefore, the word unprecedented does not mean anything.
We're gonna see the claim here, but I don't think Destiny says everything is unprecedented. But let's see.
Everything definitionally is unprecedented as you move forward in years. That's, we have an unprecedented amount of technology, an unprecedented amount of energy generation, an unprecedented amount of
And we went through the definition of unprecedented, and I just want to read that into the. So the definitions we find are never done or known before. So if you, if you discover a new species of tree frog, that is an unprecedented finding, right? Just so we're all clear on that. It could also be applied, but typically isn't. So if we're going by this definition, never done before or known before, anytime a record is broken in sports, that's another example. So let's take a look here.
Mean anything.
Everything definitionally is unprecedented as you move forward in years. That's, we have an unprecedented amount of technology, an unprecedented amount of energy generation, an unprecedented amount of
I think you might be.
So it doesn't mean that everything, like what Destiny's saying here, that everything is unprecedented when you move forward in years. We'll do a fact check on that right here. So Destiny's pushback that unprecedented is often contextless. He hasn't gotten quite that far yet, but we'll do it here. So it's partly fair, but partly evasive. Konstantin is correct in the literal sense that the recent UK long-term immigration has reached historically unusual levels. ONS reports 1.326 million long-term immigration in YE December 2023 and 948,000 in YE December 2024. With net immigration falling from 860,000 to 431,000. So unprecedented or near record can be meaningful here. But Destiny's broader methodological point is also sound. Raw, quote, biggest ever language can become analytically thin unless normalized against population, labor demand, policy change, emigration, and migrant category. The literal claim is often true. The argument built on it is often underspecified. So, Oh, thank you so much for the super chat from Instructor Bixby. Says, thanks for the great debates and post-coverage analysis. Oh, thank you so much for being here, and I really appreciate the super chat. Thank you.
We move forward in years. We have an unprecedented amount of technology, an unprecedented amount of energy generation, an unprecedented amount of
I think you might be confused about the meaning of the word unprecedented.
So yes, it's a bit reductive to say, like, well, we have an unprecedented wave of whatever. There's unprecedented things happening definitionally every year forward into the future we go.
No, that's not true. One of the most...
So that is true, that there are, that part is true, what Destiny's saying. There are unprecedented things happening all the time as we move closer into the future. Again, based on, Oxford language definitions, and I would say that's consistent with common usage. So yeah, I mean, we're seeing unprecedented technology being poured out and invented and happening all the time. Unprecedented demands for food. All of these kinds of things are unprecedented as well.
Amazing things of arguing with anybody from your position is the extent to which they refuse to understand what words mean.
So this was one of the first moments in the debate, and we went through this last night. It might have been actually the first moment when Konstantin Kisin turns to attacking the person and not the argument. And a lot of the rhetoric I've seen, the people wanting to go after Destiny have been stamping him as the unhelpful one in this discussion. But this was kind of the launching point into that, targeting the person and not the argument. Now, that doesn't give Destiny an excuse to respond and do that back to them. I don't think that's strong ethics. We can do better than eye for an eye morality when engaging in trying to engage in a fruitful dialectic. But yeah, that is why the Pangburn stage is constrained by good faith and helpfulness as dialectical requirements. Make sure you guys smash that like button. Thank you so much for being with me today. I really appreciate it.
I just explained, refuse to understand what words mean. I just explained to you repeatedly what unprecedented means. It means that it hasn't happened before.
Never done or known before. So yeah, that's pretty close. But I think that's what Destiny was saying in that last bit. We can actually go back.
So yes, it's a bit reductive to say, like, well, we have an unprecedented wave of whatever. There's unprecedented things happening definitionally every year forward into the future we go.
So Konstantin Kisin, I think I'm not sure if he was listening or not, but he should have agreed with that based on how he defines unprecedented right after this. Again, one more time.
Like, well, we have an unprecedented wave of whatever. There's unprecedented things happening definitionally every year forward.
There's unprecedented things happening definitionally every year as we move forward into the future.
Yes.
And he's saying no.
Amazing things of arguing with anybody from your position is the extent to which they refuse to understand what words mean. I just explained to you repeatedly what
we talked about this a lot last night in the full debate analysis as we worked through the whole thing. There is a cloud of heavy-heartedness over Konstantin Kisin kind of right off the bat in this discussion. That cloud lifts eventually. He's able to relax. It's about an hour in, about halfway through. But if you watch the full 5.5 hour debate analysis we did last night, you will see almost precisely where that happens.
Unprecedented means. It means that it hasn't happened before.
Now he's going to make the argument that everything is always changing. Therefore, this massive spike in change doesn't really matter.
Is there anything in US culture, in British culture, that has remained the same for the past 30, 40, 50, 60 years, for the past 100 years, that doesn't have an unprecedented thing happening constantly?
Absolutely. I mean, that is what a culture is. It was what is preserved over time.
How?
Andrew Wilson said it well. Traditions are
we got to go back here.
Change doesn't really matter.
Is there anything?
Everything is always
what words mean.
So the claim is,
I just explained to you repeatedly what unprecedented means. It means that it hasn't happened before.
Now,
so let's see if what Warren Smith claims here is what is going to happen right after.
He's going to make the argument that everything is always changing. Therefore, this massive spike in change doesn't really matter.
So he says Destiny is about to make this argument, right? Because everything is always changing, this spike in change doesn't matter. Let's see if Destiny makes this argument.
Is there anything in US culture, in British culture, that has remained the same for the past 30, 40, 50, 60 years, for the past 100 years, that doesn't have an unprecedented thing happening constantly?
Absolutely. I mean, that is what a culture is. It was what is preserved over time.
How? Andrew Wilson.
So what Warren Smith said was about to happen here did not happen. There was no argument made of the sort that he just outlined. That's very strange. Why is he saying, here it comes, and it doesn't happen? Destiny was asking more clarifying questions about culture and change, right? Let's watch Destiny's part. Let's just watch this again. It's important.
It was what is preserved over time.
How?
Andrew Wilson said it well. Traditions are the experiments of the past that
40, 50, 60 years, for the past 100 years, that doesn't have an unprecedented thing happening constantly.
Absolutely. I mean, that is what a culture is. It was understand what words mean. I just explained to you repeatedly what unprecedented means. It means that it hasn't happened before.
Now he's going to make the argument that everything is always changing. Therefore, this massive spike in change doesn't really matter.
Destiny does not make this argument. What is he talking about? This doesn't even happen.
Is there anything in US culture, in British culture?
Does Warren Smith not know what an argument is? Again, we're halfway through his video claiming that Destiny, or Konstantin Kisin, dismantles Destiny and exposes how manipulative he really is. Yeah, this is concerning. Misinformation, bad education, hyper low resolution thinking and analysis with so many mistakes. Not fact checking, which is, not fact checking his favorite guy, being, trying to be shown to be the dismantler of Destiny and the arbiter of this expose of how manipulative he really is. So far, Warren Smith seems to be the one that is manipulative here. His audience is taking this in and thinking that, he's speaking the truth about what's being observed here. I'm interested after we get through this to read the comments section.
That has remained the same for the past 30, 40, 50, 60 years, for the past 100 years, that doesn't have an unprecedented thing happening constantly.
Absolutely. I mean, that is what a culture is. It was what is preserved over time.
How?
So we talked about this last night. Is culture simply what is preserved over time? Is that a necessary requirement? We read through the definitions of culture, and we thought that they were quite sound. So, manifestations of human intellectual achievement regarded collectively, I think, is a more accurate description of what culture is. I don't think it has to have that criteria that Konstantin just outlined.
It was what is preserved over time.
How?
Andrew Wilson said it well. Traditions are the experiments of the past that worked. As the U.S. reaches its 250th past that worked.
Traditions are experiments of the past that work. What about the tradition of anti-Semitism? What about the tradition of racism? What about the tradition of sexism? What about, all of these things that are traditionally passed down implicitly and explicitly that demonstrably haven't worked by almost any purpose that would be cared to be upheld by an individual, like let's say by a well-being purpose, by a purpose of physical, mental, and social health. Let's hear that again.
Andrew Wilson said it well. Traditions are the experiments of the past that worked. As the U.S. reaches its...
Traditions, yikes.
Andrew Wilson said it well. Traditions are the experiments of the past that worked.
Traditions are the experiments of the past that worked. Yeah, so long as you agree that those traditions worked, right? And then the next guy will say, no, they didn't, and here's why. You know, we have to understand the rationale of whether or not they worked or not. This is what's called a deepity. Again, this is a low resolution take on what traditions are. Can I hear that again?
How?
Andrew Wilson said it well. Traditions are the experiments of the past that worked.
The experiments of the past that worked. Why did they work? Because they managed to survive, deletion, or yeah, it's a weird statement.
As the U.S. reaches, among others have continued on to feed this country. And that tradition lives on today through Good Ranchers. Good Ranchers delivered right here in the U.S. Fits to veteran organizations. I have now subscribed to Good Ranchers myself and appreciate how easy this is to manage. I can just pause deliveries and order more or make whatever changes I need. Their system is built to accommodate schedules.
So far, this is someone who's making a lot of money. He's got an advertiser in here. He's getting a lot of views, a lot of action on YouTube. He's probably making $20,000 to $30,000 a month, I would say, on his YouTube channel. Honestly, he's a level 1 beginner thinker from a philosophical perspective. He's not tracking what's going on here in the discussion. Simple things like burdens of proof. This is like 101 things you learn on first day in college or university. So that's it's pretty wild. This experiment of going through these reviews might be a little more exciting than I anticipated.
Support a company that's committed to honoring America's path to include in every $5 off your first order. GoodRanchers.com.
People do without
American meat delivered.
A culture is what people do without having been told to do so by a law.
But what is an example of?
So again, a culture is what people do, not having to be told so by law. I use the example of just human bodily functions. That this definition falls apart. It's people defecate without having to be told to by law. We wouldn't consider defecating to be a culture. That's just a biological reality, something we deal with.
Of a culture that is unchanging.
So because cultures change in some way over time, we have no right to care about a massive, rapid change now.
Who said you have no right to care about a massive, rapid change now? Nobody said that.
That is his logic.
I feel like cultures are evolving all the time. It's definitionally a part of culture. If you have a brother, both of you will be different for your entire lives. But that
there would
mean,
be a family culture that you have that's different to other families.
But you wouldn't be the same as you were when you were 10 years old.
No,
you
you
would grow
wouldn't.
and change,
Of
right?
course.
So when you talk about
But
preserving
you're still the same
culture,
person, right?
What?
You're still the same person.
Yeah, but you're dramatically changed.
But you're still the same.
No.
But it's pretty clear what Konstantin is trying to say.
Okay, let me go back
the
here.
Same person. Order. GoodRanchers.com.
Culture is what people do without having been told to do so by a law.
But what is an example of a culture that is unchanging?
So because cultures change in some way over time, we have no right to care about a massive, rapid change now.
This is, again, Kathy Newman strawmanning, not tracking what's being said, making up things in your own mind that are not connected to what's being said in the content that you are reviewing. Yikes.
is his logic.
I feel like cultures are evolving all the time. It's definitionally a part of culture. If you have a brother, both of you will be different for your entire lives. But that
there
doesn't
would
mean,
be a family culture that you have that's different to other families.
But you wouldn't be the same as you were when you were 10 years old.
No,
you
you
would grow
wouldn't.
and change,
Of
right?
course.
So when you talk about
But you're still the
preserving
same
culture,
person, right?
What?
You're still the same person.
Yeah, but you're dramatically changed.
But you're still the same.
No.
But it's
Yeah, you're not the same person. Yeah, that continuity. It's this whole conversation in philosophy about being and becoming. A better description of human beings is actually human becomings. Yes, we do have, we apply labels to each other, our names. There's good pragmatic reasons for why we do that. But that doesn't mean, you know, the Travis of 1 year ago is the same person as the Travis today. I'm not. I'm just not. I think that's the quibbling here. And, you know, yeah.
You're still the same.
No.
But it's pretty clear what Konstantin is trying to say here. You are the same person, regardless of how you change in life.
Are you the
Yeah, that is what he was trying to say, but that's wrong.
Regardless of how you change in life.
Are you the same as you were 10 or 15 years ago? What do you mean by that? The same. You're not unchanged, right?
This is what it feels like to talk to a postmodernist.
He keeps squeezing postmodernism in there. What they're talking about here has nothing to do with postmodernism. Nothing. He needs to study postmodernism.
Are you pretending to be a moron, or are you actually being one? Are you pretending to be a moron, or are you actually being one?
So your claim was that we need to preserve.
By the way, I think, again, this is another just direct attack by Konstantin Kisin onto Destiny, and Destiny just let it roll off his shoulder. I think eventually Destiny does start poking back in the same way, which again, I don't like that posture from him in a situation like this. When someone's attacking you, I like how he responded here to just kind of overcome that. And, you know, and Konstantin Kisin should take notes from that posture. Yeah, it's too bad that I really think where this started getting off on the wrong foot in this first section was, you know, obviously started by Konstantin Kisin and then continued by Destiny. He fell into that game, which, you know, in the good faith, helpful dialectic, we want to try and maintain helpful ground. But it does take two to maintain that. And in a situation where you can't just stop the conversation and leave or whatever here, if those minimum requirements are violated, you have to find a way to navigate back to more helpful pastures.
Culture because cultures aren't supposed to change.
I'm actually being one.
So your claim was that we need to preserve culture because cultures aren't supposed to change.
No, that's not my claim.
He never said that. Notice how Destiny spins.
So your claim was that.
Are you pretending to be a moron, or are you actually being one?
So your claim was that we need to preserve culture because cultures aren't supposed to change.
No, that's not my claim.
He never.
Yeah, I don't think, I agree. I don't think Konstantin made that claim.
Never said that. Notice how Destiny spins the claim to something that Konstantin never said.
Yeah, but what about you, Warren? You've been doing that for this whole video. What are you talking about?
Question is, over the past 30 or 40 years, what are things that have changed in American or British culture that you feel over the past 200 years before that were unchanging?
Okay.
Essentially, Destiny's argument is everything changes, therefore you should embrace the change. This is inevitable, therefore you spins the claim to something that Konstantin never said.
My question is,
That is so rich that he says that. Yeah, he really needs to take a look at his own work. Like, I have a a litany of notes for Mr. Warren Smith here.
The past 30 or 40 years, what are things that have changed in American or British culture that you feel over the past 200 years before that were unchanging?
Okay.
Essentially, Destiny's argument is everything changes, therefore you should embrace the change.
He hasn't made that argument.
He never said.
My question is, over the past 30 or 40 years, what are things that have changed?
He's asking
American
a
or British
question.
culture that you feel over the past 200 years before that were unchanging?
Okay.
Essentially, Destiny's argument is everything changes, therefore you should embrace the change.
Warren Smith does not know what an argument is. That is terrifying. He's asking a question, a clarifying question. He's trying to get Konstantin Kisin to answer that particular question.
This is inevitable, therefore you can't have a problem with it.
He never said that. And he just finished saying that Destiny was engaged in a misrepresentation or strawman. And then right after that, he does the same thing.
One of the things that has changed in Britain over the last 30 years is we now have an extensive number of Islamist terrorist attacks.
Someone's asking, what is Destiny's argument then? He's not making an argument here. He's asking a question. Yikes.
Stabbings, mass rape of...
You don't just get to imagine the argument that the person is making because they're asking clarifying questions, or he's asking a very specific question to Konstantin Kisin here.
Over the past 200 years before that were unchanging.
Okay.
Essentially, Destiny
is we now have last 30...
Therefore, you can't have a problem.
Stabbings, mass rape culture before.
You're not understanding. You're not following the conversation.
Stephen.
Again, distract.
We have to go back a little further. I just need to watch this again.
Claim to something that constitutes.
So your claim
this is
that
rich.
We need to preserve
we gotta
culture
watch
because
this.
cultures aren't supposed to change.
No, that's not my claim.
He never said that. Notice how Destiny spins the claim to something that Konstantin never said.
I can't believe he says this, and then he does
My
this.
question is, over the past 30 or 40 years, what are things that have changed in American or British culture that you feel over the past 200 years before that were unchanging?
Okay.
Essentially, Destiny's argument is everything changes, therefore you should embrace the change. This is inevitable, therefore you can't have a problem with it.
That is ridiculous. Somebody clip that. That's insane.
One of the things that has changed in Britain over the last 30 years is we now have an extensive number of Islamist terrorist attacks, mass stabbings, mass rape of British girls by Islamist and Muslim grooming gangs. This is not something that happened in this culture before.
You're not understanding. You're not following the conversation.
We did go through the grooming gangs issue. I'm going to read this into the record because I think it's important to do that while we're doing any kind of analysis through this. So, grooming gang scale, ethnicity, and whether this was just Rotherham. So Konstantin is right, and they eventually talk about this, but I'm going to read this entire thing into the record. It is right that it was not just Rotherham, but with regards to where the grooming gangs was happening, but he wildly overstates certainty and scale. So this is where fact-checking, of course, matters most. The recent UK government national audit on group-based child sexual exploitation and abuse says several things at once. There were serious, repeated institutional failures in place, like Rotherham. Alexis J's Rotherham report estimated 1,400 children were sexually exploited there between 1997 and 2013, mainly by men of Asian ethnicity. It was not Rotherham, it was not only Rotherham. The audit lists multiple serious case reviews and prosecutions across many areas, but it is still, quote, impossible to provide a definitive assessment of the ethnic profile nationally because the national data are poor and often missing ethnicity for large shares of suspects. In one national data set cited in the audit, 66% of perpetrator ethnicity was unknown, not declared. The audit explicitly says presenting such data without the unknowns is misleading. Local data do show overrepresentation of Asian suspects in some places, including Greater Manchester and West Yorkshire, but that is not the same as providing a uniform national ethnic profile across all group-based child sexual exploitation. So Destiny was wrong to imply this was basically just one scandal, which Destiny did eventually imply that. Konstantin Kisin was wrong to present a settled national ethnic story, and even more wrong to throw around figures like 500,000 to 1 million British girls in this context. There's no official support for that number in the audit. The audit does not validate anything like that total for grooming gang victims. So when Konstantin Kisin says, 500,000 to 1 million British girls were raped throughout the course of this conversation, I cannot find any support for that number. Let me just fill up my water really quickly. Make sure you smash the like button. Thank you for being with me here today, and I hope you are subscribed. Okay, I brought the jug of water with me. Okay. Well, we got about a minute left in this attempt at a review here.
Conversation.
Stephen.
Again, distract.
Islamist and Muslim grooming gangs. This is not something that happened in this culture before.
You're not understanding. You're not following the conversation.
Stephen.
Again, distract from what is most important here, the fact that we are seeing a massive, rapid transformation, the likes of which we have never seen before.
Islamist.
So that
Muslim
cut
grooming
was a very dishonest cut.
This is not
let's watch
something
that
that
again.
happened in this culture before.
You're not understanding. You're not following the conversation.
Stephen.
Again, distract from what is most important here, the fact that we are seeing a distract.
Happened in this culture before.
You're not understanding. You're not following the conversation.
Stephen.
Again.
So that little cut in there is missing a lot of context in between what was just happening. He didn't show right after the response from Destiny. He cut to some thing where Destiny was saying he's not following the conversation, as though he was, he wanted to dodge what was being said about grooming gangs. That's not at all what happened. So that's a very dishonest bit of cutting.
And distract from what is most important here, the fact that we are seeing a massive, rapid transformation, the likes of which we have never seen before.
Answer my question. If 500,000 girls have been mass raped in this way, specifically being targeted because they were not of a particular religion or ethnicity, how many of them would have to be treated in this way for you to admit that it's a mass thing?
So we just talked about that, right? The grooming gang issue. There is no official support, reliable data, and this is coming from gov.uk as a resource, and routers, and ONS. There is no reliable support for the 500,000 to 1 million British girls number that Konstantin Kisin is talking about here.
Konstantin is pointing out a massive, rapid alteration in an effort to identify what is causing that alteration.
So again, this Warren Smith guy is just believing on faith, it seems, that what Konstantin Kisin is saying is true here. And in fact, there is no evidentiary support for those numbers that are being, thrown out.
Well, everything changes, so therefore you can't have a problem with this massive, rapid change that is unprecedented.
Nobody made that argument, Warren. Nobody said that.
Unprecedented.
Conservatives, you play this game where you falsely identify a problem, you lie to the audience about it, and then you manage to gain power. You go through with some wacky scheme. Go figure, the wacky scheme doesn't fix anything, and then somehow you come back with the same recycle, identify a problem, you lie to the audience.
Change that is.
So first of all, I don't like this rhetoric of you have your interlocutor there, and then you ascribe them to a group, or you label them as part of a group, and then you argue against that group. Spend the time with your interlocutor. That's what the dialectic is all about. Be there, present with them. Respond to what they are saying. Extract information through questioning through them. It doesn't serve your purposes in a dialectic to be doing that. It might score some rhetorical points with low resolution thinking, but we should be trying to transcend that into higher levels of thinking.
Is unprecedented.
Conservatives, you play this game where you falsely...
Unprecedented.
Conservatives, you play this game where you falsely identify a problem, you lie to the audience about it, and then you manage to gain power. You go through with some wacky scheme. Go figure, the wacky scheme doesn't fix anything, and then somehow you come back with the same recycled narratives over and over again. Play this game where you falsely identify a problem, you lie to the audience about it, and then you manage to gain power. You go through with some wacky scheme. Go figure, the wacky scheme doesn't fix anything, and then somehow you come back with the same recycled narratives over and over again, asking for another shot at it.
He's just going to turn this into a political game about conservatives vying for power.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm going to run this transcript. Actually, I might do this live on the air through my virtue analysis system. Let me take this. Where's your transcript? Okay. Well, I thought it wasn't going to allow me to copy the transcript. And what I want to do is okay. I'm just running a quick Pangburn Virtue scorecard here on this transcript. It just takes a second to run through. Let me know which videos you want me to do an analysis on here. I'm going to do a few more. Comment. Drop in the comments. You won't be able to share the link, but drop into the comments the title of the video. But we are focusing on debate, analyzing debate reviews today. Okay, let's see what we got here. So the reviewer, Warren Smith, gets a failing grade. I just ran the entire transcript through my virtue analysis system here. So for fallibilism, the reviewer presents his interpretation of the debate with strong confidence and little epistemic humility. Examples at 10 seconds, when you strip away the filler, you can suddenly see the strategy that he's using. The statement frames the reviewer as revealing the hidden truth, implying privileged interpretive authority rather than uncertainty. Another example, at 1 minute and 43 seconds, all he can do is try and paint the picture that the statement "a lot" doesn't really mean anything. Here, the reviewer asserts an interpretation of Destiny's intent rather than entertaining alternative readings. Similarly, at 3 minutes and 39 seconds, therefore, this massive spike in change doesn't really matter. This is presented as Destiny's implied position, but the reviewer infers the argument rather than demonstrating it rigorously. Epistemic pattern. The reviewer exhibits several anti-fallibilist tendencies: mind-reading opponents, confidence without uncertainty qualifiers, narrative framing before analysis, lack of counter-interpretations. A fallibilist approach would include statements such as, "It appears that Destiny may be attempting," or "one interpretation could be." Instead, the reviewer presents conclusions as obvious. A strength for him here is that he correctly identifies definitional disputes. So the unprecedented example. So the fallibilism score here is a 4.5 out of 10. So that's a failing grade. Not good enough. Moderate analytical awareness, but low epistemic humility. Well-being, observed framing. The reviewer frames immigration primarily through civilizational threat narratives. So at 6 minutes and 51 seconds, now we have Islamist terrorist attacks, mass rape of British girls, Muslim grooming gangs. This is presented as causal evidence within the immigration discussion. So the analytical concern here is such framing can have two possible well-being orientations: protective concern for victims and social stability, group threat amplification that increases hostility. The reviewer's tone suggests civilizational alarmism rather than balanced harm analysis. For instance, at 7 minutes and 3 seconds, the fact that we are seeing a massive rapid transformation, the likes of which we have never seen before. The argument is framed in existential threat terms. However, the reviewer does raise legitimate harm concerns such as sexual exploitation cases. This shows some well-being orientation, though the presentation is politically charged rather than analytically neutral. So the well-being score here is 5 out of 10. Very, very low, passing grade, but very low. Concern for harm exists, but is embedded within polarized narratives. Now we get to communication. And the corresponding maxim for communication, and as you all know, is that good faith and helpfulness are the minimum requirements for fruitful dialectic. The reviewer attempts to clarify the debate structure at 1 minute and 16 seconds. I can edit away the filler. These dynamics suddenly become visible. This suggests an attempt to extract argumentative structure. The reviewer also summarizes positions clearly. Essentially, Destiny's argument is everything changes, therefore you should embrace the change. Even though this was a straw man, what this is getting at is that the summary itself, the language used, is clear. So, however, several communication issues appear. Attribution distortion. At 6:21, he says he never said that. Notice how Destiny spins the claim. This claim itself may be overconfident because debates often involve interpretive paraphrasing rather than strict misrepresentation. Straw framing risk. The reviewer repeatedly compresses Destiny's position into a simplified slogan, like everything changes, therefore it doesn't matter. But Destiny's actual argument likely concerns comparative context and normative thresholds, not pure relativism. So it's good that the system caught this. Lack of steel manning. The reviewer never attempts to state the strongest possible version of the opposing argument. A Pangburn communication aligned commenter would attempt something like, the strongest interpretation of Destiny's argument is... So that's why the communication score 5 out of 10. Some clear explanation, but insufficient good faith reconstruction of opposing arguments. Patience. The reviewer displays moderate impatience towards ideological opponents. 6 minutes and 6 seconds. This is what it feels like to talk to a postmodernist. This rhetorical framing implies dismissive categorization rather than patient analysis. 3 minutes and 27 seconds, the extent to which they refuse to understand what words mean. This attributes intentional ignorance to the opponent. Patience in discourse would avoid psychological accusations. However, the reviewer does not descend into insults or ridicule beyond mild ideological labeling. The patience score, 5.5 out of 10. These are very low scores. Slight rhetorical irritation, but not extremely hostile. Light-heartedness, the corresponding maxim is refine and express your sense of humor. The reviewer demonstrates very little humor or levity. The tone is serious, adversarial, analytical. The only humorous element appears indirectly via Kisin's analogy. If I eat a tub of ice cream, that's a lot of ice cream. But the reviewer himself does not cultivate lightheartedness. Pangburn philosophy encourages humor because it reduces tribal tension, encourages intellectual play, improves dialectical engagement. So the lightheartedness score from this reviewer, Warren Smith, is 3 out of 10, massive failure. Minimal humor, tone is combative rather than playful. Now, inspiration, let art and science inspire. So in this case, the virtue measures receptivity to art and science. The reviewer references statistics, historical comparisons, cultural analysis, but these references are political rather than scientific. At 10 seconds, more people came to Britain in 35 years than in previous 2 millennia. The statement is presented rhetorically rather than with data, context, or demographic analysis. So there's no engagement with migration research, sociology, economics, demographic modeling in this entire video, nor is there reference to artistic or cultural inspiration. So a very low inspiration score, 3.5 out of 10, minimal engagement with art and science. So the overall score is a failing grade. It's a 4.4 out of 10 from a Pangburn virtue perspective. We went through, the analysis, the play-by-play analysis like we did, and then this Pangburn Virtue Scorecard is analyzing the transcript based on the 6 Pangburn virtues and maxims. All right, maybe we should do another one. Let's see. Let's type in Konstantin Kisin verse Destiny. Oh, that's us. We're live. This one is how long? 19 minutes. This one was, I already reviewed this one, which was about the supposed killer in the crowd who was having thoughts of wanting to kill or harm Konstantin Kisin. I haven't received any evidence or verification yet if this person actually did attend, but it was a scary video. I did review the video and we are taking it very seriously. So I have told Konstantin Kisin's management team to get in touch with me if law enforcement needs anything from me. But so far I haven't seen any evidence. I was provided a name of who the person was. I checked in our database, our ticket database for that name. I couldn't find that name, but there were 3 matching first names, so maybe they gave a fake last name. Who knows? Okay, we got some short reviews. There's our clips. Let's see. This says, Konstantin Kisin destroys Destiny's Wikipedia talking points by Rattlesnake TV. 282,000 views. Well, shall we take a look at that? Oh, we were going to scan the comment section a little bit first. Let's do that. And then we'll do that Rattlesnake TV one. Okay. Let's look at some of the top comments here. I am torn between wanting to see someone expose Destiny and not wanting to hear Destiny. It's quite a predicament, really. Okay, not wanting. You'd want to examine why you don't want to hear destiny. What is causing you to not want to hear from this, opposing view? There's no specificity added. At Pangburn, we try to promote specificity as often as we can. When you say something like that, so here's the comment. I am torn between wanting to see someone expose destiny and not wanting to hear destiny. It's quite a predicament, really. They should continue as to why they feel that way or why they believe that. Give examples so people can understand. Wisdom is located in specificity. It's not located in generalities. So, and this is just a generality. This is it's just a general statement, but it's interesting that it's like the most popular comment. It's got 6.2 thousand likes, and specificity, quite frankly, is not popular, but we should try to make it popular. It's only going to lead people to be able to think in a higher order way, engage in a higher level of conceptual organization, become better thinkers, become better philosophers. Someone said they can't survive arguments unless they redefine terms out of existence. So this is a overgeneralization. We see this in politics all the time. They can't survive arguments. Othering people into groups. It's not even specific enough to say who they is in this comment. What rape gangs? What elephant in the room? Since when do elephants just get in rooms? Anyone who looks at what is happening in Europe and wants more of it is insane, evil, or both. False trichotomy. Anyone who looks at things different than me is either insane, evil, or both. There might be other reasons, right? And when you say what is happening in Europe, you're lacking, you're severely lacking specificity here. We don't know exactly what you're talking about. Destiny would rather argue about the meaning of words than the content of the argument. A classic tactic for someone who doesn't have an argument. Destiny made many arguments throughout the night, but he asked a lot of questions and seeked to clarify a lot of Konstantin Kisin's points. Or what, when Konstantin Kisin would present a fact or a fact as he believed it, why are you presenting that fact, Konstantin? Like, what are you getting at? Why is that an important fact for us to know? What is the prescription born of that fact that you would like to make? So a lot of people get frustrated with when the philosophy of semantics pops up, but we are language-driven beings. Philosophy of semantics will inevitably come up in discussions where you need to clarify meaning. And sometimes you can clarify competing definitions or competing meanings, which means you can move forward in a discussion. If you can't agree on what a term should mean moving forward in the discussion, you can move forward with multiple terms. You just have to, it becomes more work because you need to answer and reference specifically what meaning you are referring to, and often clarify what your position would be if you were in fact speaking to their meaning or a meaning you disagree with. So it can get difficult. But yeah, philosophy of semantics is necessary, and it's one of the most important games in town in philosophy, but perhaps in general the most boring for people. Okay, we got a few comments there. Let's go forward.
Changes. This is actually postmodernism.
You don't think that more people coming into a country in 35 years than had come in the previous 2,000 years is quite a lot?
I just think that statement is like vacuous and meaningless. When we say quite a lot, what like should it have been less?
Who can really say what a lot is? It's just a social construct. Everything's always changing.
If more people have come into a country...
Here we go.
Rattlesnake TV, guys. In this...
You're still the same person.
Yeah, but you're dramatically changed.
But you're still the same.
No.
Are you pretending to be a moron, or are you actually being one? I've worked out the tricks that you play, and so I've trapped you in your own logic.
Maybe it is the case that the Royal Air Force actually had a policy of not hiring straight white men.
It did, yeah.
I have a feeling when I look into it, it's going to be completely untrue, like most of the stuff that you bring it up.
Could you just read out what it says, please?
Seeking to join RAF, described as useless white male pilots in bid to hit impossible diversity targets.
Welcome back to Rattlesnake TV, guys. In this video, we're going to be watching a debate put on by Pangburn between Destiny and Konstantin Kisin. This one was a great bit of content, definitely worth the watch. And I mean, it is also a great example of two people going against each other, one of which has a worldview derived from Wikipedia talking points, and the other person has a well-formulated worldview. And even though I disagree with Konstantin Kisin about a lot of things...
So we'll see if he demonstrates what he means by a worldview derived from Wikipedia talking points. First of all, Wikipedia is a great launching point if you're interested in a topic. And one of the great things that Wikipedia does is it engages in robust academic citations and references that you can follow if you want to get access to where the information is being derived from. So Wikipedia is heavily adjudicated. So Wikipedia talking points, it seems like is being used as as an insult, or to talk down to someone. But I don't really think it's really got as much muscle from an academic perspective as some of these people might think. I just want to make sure this is all good still. Great.
I respect him as a communicator. I mean, it is just so entertaining to watch him, a centrist... Rattlesnake TV, guys. In this video, we're going to be watching a debate put on by Pangburn between Destiny and Konstantin Kisin. This one was a great bit of content, definitely worth the watch. And I mean, it is also a great example of two people going against each other, one of which has a worldview derived from Wikipedia talking points, and the other person...
So he also, in how they cut that clip there, it made it look like Destiny was reading his quote-unquote Wikipedia talking points off the phone, which, of course, that's not what was happening in that moment.
As a well-formulated worldview. And even though I disagree with Konstantin Kisin about a lot of things, I respect him as a communicator. I mean, it is just so entertaining to watch him, a centrist liberal, go at it with somebody like Destiny, who's more of the unhinged, detached from reality, blue-haired, mouth-breathing liberal type. Konstantin does a great job of highlighting his slimy tactics here. So this is going to be more of a strategic...
So there's a lot of personal attacks here. What this person's doing, this Rattlesnake TV person, is really signaling to someone who I think is paying attention and is really trying to do a true analysis that they are, in fact, looking at this through a biased lens. So we'll see if this analysis, if in fact that's what this is, speaks true to how they are setting up this clip.
Strategic breakdown. So with that, let's get into the first clip.
The three biggest cities in this country in the last 30 years have ceased to be majority inhabited by the people who are native to this land. That's just a fact. And I am one of the people who's come here in that time. So
breakdown. So with that,
I'm just going to go back to this because this is part of our fact check.
The three biggest cities in this country in the last 30 years have ceased to be majority inhabited by the people who are native to this land.
Okay, native to this land. Okay, let me go back to my... Okay, great. I got my fact check sheet back up here. Let's get back to it.
That's just a fact. And I am one of the people who's come here in that time. So
Breakdown. So with that, let's get into the first clip.
the three biggest cities in this country in the last 30 years have ceased to be majority inhabited by the people who are native to this land. That's just a fact. And I am one of the people who's come here in that time. So I'm not saying it's only a terrible thing, but it's an objective fact. The three biggest cities in the country are now majority minority. London, and this has happened very quickly. London was 80% white British in 1991. It is probably around 30% white British today. So if you have seen that level of change in the city in which you live, think about this as well. 3/4 of the people who...
Just going to do that fact check quickly because it's on my list. So the claim was London was 80% white British in 1991 and is around 30% white British today. This is directionally right on decline, but the numbers are sloppy. So the ONS, which is the Office for National Statistics, says that in 2021, London was 36.8%, quote, white, English, Welsh, Scottish, Northern Irish, or British, down from 44.9% in 2011. Reuters, citing ONS, also notes the common confusion between, quote, white British and all ethnic groups. London is not a, quote, majority white city in the all white category. In 2021, it was 53.8% white overall, but less than half identified as white British. So the decline is real, but the framing often slides between white British and white, which changes the claim materially.
Live in this country today are over the age of 35. So all of this has happened within the lifetime of one generation, effectively. That is a level of change that is A, completely unprecedented, B, extremely transformative, whether you like it or not, good or bad, whatever you may think. You might think, oh, you know, the amount of different kinds
Since
of food
we've gone through all this, I'm going to try and get to the
but it's
where
also
the
true objectively.
actual
The
review
entire swathes of this
part
city,
is.
unprecedented rate. More people come to Britain illegally.
Initiatives connected to the US military. Hear what Tony Robbins had to say about this.
After you've addressed that.
So just before we carry on, guys, I have to tell you about the sponsor of today's
Another
video,
sponsor.
Black Forest Supplements. Why
Has gone through the roof 'cause
Selling supplements.
did ones? This is why the whole
I guess the thing that
precursor called NMN. So if you guys would like to check out Black Forest's NMN today, all you've got to do is go to blackforestsupplements.com/Jake. Because right now they've got their biggest sale of the year. 50% off NMN for the next 48 hours. Again, blackforestsupplements.com/Jake. Get on with the video.
Sure. So I guess the thing that is a little bit strange to me about the immigration question is that sometimes I'll hear a bunch of descriptions.
Okay, I'm going to fast forward.
So this is an important point, and I think that Konstantin was well prepared for this and well prepared for Destiny's ramblings and Destiny's tactics, and he demonstrates this throughout the course of the debate. And once you hear this, you actually can't really unhear it. And that is what Konstantin Kisin just said. It is so true that when you listen to these leftists debate, they spend most of their time pretending to not know what their opponent is talking about and trying to pick apart their opponent with pedantic details.
Oftentimes a lack of a prescriptive statement. It seems like there's a little bit of fear of committing to any particular idea about what an ideal immigrant would look like.
Which essentially just always derails the debate. Now, don't get me wrong, semantics are very important. If you are
Yes.
Let's go back.
What's the thing that's been frozen in time?
I just explained it to you.
Yes, you laid out a bunch of numbers, and I just explained why they're contextless and meaningless. But now I'm asking, what is the thing that's unprecedented?
Look,
or I'm sorry, what would be a thing that is not changing in the past 30 years? Like if you had to look at something.
One of the most amazing things of arguing with anybody from your position is the extent to which they refuse to understand what words mean.
So this is an important point, and I think that Konstantin was well prepared for this and well prepared for Destiny's ramblings and Destiny's tactics, and he demonstrated.
So let's see if he first demonstrates what he considers rambling or tactics here, because he just made two claims that there were ramblings and tactics. Ramblings probably means, from his perspective, things that aren't important. Tactics would be things that are, you know, Destiny has something in his mind. He's trying to use a tactic in order to achieve some kind of untoward goal.
Demonstrates this throughout the course of the debate. And once you hear this, you actually can't really unhear it. And that is what Konstantin Kisin just said. It is so true that when you listen to these leftists debate, they spend most of their time.
So again, we're talking about leftists in general. And you know, this is an empirical claim that could be investigated, and I'm going to see what we can do to investigate it. But I'm not sure if we'll be too successful. But you know, I doubt that the empirical data of leftist, what you see with leftists is they do this. I doubt the empirical data is going to be offered to substantiate that claim.
Pretending to not know what their opponent is talking about and trying to pick apart their opponent, really unhear it. And that is what Konstantin Kisin just said. It is so true that when you listen to these leftists debate, they spend most of their time pretending to not know what their opponent is talking about.
They spend most of their time pretending not to know what they're... My system is thinking. What up, everyone? Thanks for sticking with me through this. Thinking. It is thinking. I've asked for a PhD level analysis on that claim that leftist debaters spend most of their time not knowing what their opponent is talking about. Let's see if we have any data to look up. All right. We're getting some information here. Okay, great. Let's take a look. Okay. The answer, okay, a PhD level answer and analysis here is that there is no good evidence for the blanket claim that leftist debaters spend, quote, most of their time not understanding what their opponent is talking about. The stronger conclusion from political psychology and conflict research is more general. People across ideological camps often misread opponents, import hostile motives, and argue past each other, especially when the issue is identity relevant, emotionally loaded, or framed in different conceptual vocabularies. And for that section, my citations here are Cambridge University Press and Assessment on Ideology, Motivated Reasoning, and Cognitive Reflection. Science Direct, You Can't Handle the Truth, Conflict Counterparts. PNAS, Exaggerated Meta-Perception, Predicted Intergroup Hostility. We're coming from Nature with Misconceptions about Out-Partisan Democratic Values. And again from PNAS, Why the Backfire Effect Does Not Explain the Durability. A useful distinction is between literal comprehension and interpretive comprehension. In many debates, the participants do hear the words correctly, but they do not share the same background model, definitions, threat perception, or standards of evidence. One side may be talking in a moral register, another in a statistical register, another in a civilizational or symbolic register. That creates the appearance of, quote, not knowing what the opponent is talking about, when the deeper problem is often framework mismatch, not total incomprehension. Research on motivated reasoning supports this broader picture. Both left and right-leaning people can process information in ideologically congruent ways rather than neutrally. And this can become stronger among politically sophisticated participants because intelligence is often used to defend identity, not merely to discover truth. So the best analytic answer is leftist debaters do not uniquely or generally spend most of their time failing to understand opponents. What happens more often is a cluster of recurrent failure modes found across political debates. Semantic drift, for example. The two sides use the same words for different things: freedom, harm, racism, woman, violence, equity, fascism, open borders, rights. When terms are underdefined, each side hears a caricature. Level of analysis mismatch. One speaker is making a micro-level claim, the other a macro-level claim. Example, one side says, "This policy hurts some individuals." The other replies, "Overall outcomes improved." Both may be coherent, but they are not answering the same question. Motive substitution. Instead of reconstructing the opponent's argument in its strongest form, the debater substitutes a moralized motive. You just want control. You just hate immigrants. You just don't care about women. You're just racist. You're just anti-science. Research on conflict shows people systematically overestimate the other side's threat, defensiveness, and hostility. Naive realism versus objectivity illusion. Each side experiences its own view as the obvious reality tracking one and sees disagreement as evidence of bias or malice. That kind of exemplifies the way this video started with this Rattlesnake TV person. That makes genuine understanding harder because the opponent is treated as distorted before the argument is even processed. That happened at the beginning of this video. Identity protective cognition. In high-stakes political settings, debaters often evaluate claims partly by whether accepting them would threaten their coalition, status, or moral self-image. This is not uniquely left-wing. Asymmetric topic familiarity. A debater may be very fluent in one discourse universe and weak in another. For instance, some leftist speakers are stronger on structural injustice than on immigration system mechanics or crime data. Some right-wing speakers are stronger on social disorder than on institutional discrimination or labor economics. That can create real one-sided incomprehension on specific topics without justifying a global claim about leftists. The most rigorous verdict then is, here's the empirical verdict. The claim, as stated, is too strong and too essentialist. And again, the claim is that leftist debaters spend most of their time not knowing what their opponent is talking about. The evidence supports a more modest proposition like this. Political debaters, including many leftist debaters, often misunderstand opponents because ideological conflict encourages misperception, projection, and framework mismatch. But the literature does not justify singling out leftists as the class that spends, quote, most of their time in the condition. In fact, some research argues many partisan distortions are broadly symmetrical, while other work finds asymmetries on particular dimensions or in particular systems. That means the fairest conclusion in context is context dependent, not tribe dependent. And this particular section on the empirical verdict comes from Cambridge University on ideology, motivated reasoning, and cognitive reflection. Also from Cambridge, the ideological asymmetry of the American party system, and from Nature, misperceptions about out-partisans, democratic and democratic values. So a sharper philosophical analysis would be, if by know what their opponent is talking about, you mean charitably reconstructing the opponent's strongest claim, then many debaters fail. But the failure is usually driven by incentives. Debate rewards speed over reconstruction generally. Audiences reward moral certainty over nuance. Ideological communities punish concessions. Online clips reward dunks over understanding. Research on debate and deliberation suggests that whether people learn from disagreement depends heavily on institutional structure and whether listeners can extract information even from arguments they find unpersuasive. In other words, the debate environment itself can discourage careful engagement. Okay, so I'm going through this information to show you what rigor and study looks like. There's a Mexican fruit truck coming by. That's what you're hearing in the background. Someone made a comment. Thank you so much for the super chat, Fancy Teeth. I'm not sure if you guys can even hear me. So it's cool here in Mexico that a lot of different food trucks, fruit trucks, grocery trucks, and things like that drive right by our place, and you can wave them down and buy things right out of the back of a truck. And there's a fruit truck that comes by that's full of beautiful selection of amazing fruit and vegetables at this time of year. We're kind of in the fruit season right now. Okay, so thank you so much for the super chat. Fancy Teeth says, when cons argue over culture, what they really mean is nation's, quote, spirit. Your comment about manifestations was close, not just what is preserved over time. The spirit has an essentialism to it. Okay, interesting. The spirit. I think yours is a very, private language, personalized definition. Fine. We all have some of those as well going on. But I think the one I read, the cultural definition here, manifestations of human intellectual achievement regarded collectively would be kind of the minimum requirement. But I think you're adding more specified requirements for perhaps how you digest the concept of culture. So I wanted to read through that research bit there. When people make these grand sweeping claims like this, and I guess we'll see if there's any empiricism added. But once we actually look at the empirical reality of what is known, nothing shows up. It's not substantiated. So then we more are analyzing why people say things like this or why people have this perception. And but that should be this is a training ground for why you shouldn't make claims like that are just non-empirical. Like, what are you using to know what is justifying your knowledge here? Is it vibes? I see a lot of that in this world, in this political commentary world, and in the Joe Rogan world. Vibes-based epistemology. That's very low resolution epistemology. That's kind of like relying on pure coherentism. If it seems like that's the case, I'm going to say that this is how leftists argue. But then an empiricist will come along and say, okay, well, what's your evidence of that? And you're going to say, well, I've seen it. I've seen firsthand accounts of it. Yeah, but does that mean that that's the way, leftists argue, in general? Isn't that an overgeneralization? Isn't that fallacious? You got to start asking these questions if you want to be the owner of a sound epistemology, a sound way of discerning knowledge.
So this is an important point, and I think that Konstantin was well prepared for this and well prepared for Destiny's ramblings and Destiny's tactics, and he demonstrates this throughout the course of the debate. And once you hear this, you actually can't really unhear it. And that is what Konstantin Kisin just said. It is so true that when you listen to these leftists debate, they spend most of their time pretending to not know what their opponent is talking about and trying to pick apart their opponent with pedantic detail.
So he's also saying he is pretending here. How does he know Destiny's pretending? How do you know that? Because you're mind reading? Again, this is like dog shit epistemology. This should not be promoted as a wise way of thinking. It's anti-empirical, to be honest.
Oftentimes a lack of a prescriptive statement. It seems like there's a little bit of fear of committing.
So this is an important point, and I think that
And we have not yet seen this demonstration of tactics or rambling yet from Mr. Rattlesnake. These were claims he made about Destiny. So I've yet to see that substantiated.
Konstantin was well prepared for this and well prepared for Destiny's ramblings and Destiny's tactics, and he demonstrates this throughout the course of the debate. And once you hear this, you actually can't really unhear it. And that is what Konstantin Kisin just said. It is so true that when you listen to these leftists debate, they spend most of their time pretending to not know what their opponent is talking about and trying to pick apart their opponent with pedantic details.
Oftentimes a lack of a prescriptive statement. It seems like there's a little bit of fear of committing to any particular idea about what an ideal immigrant would look like.
Which essentially...
He didn't allow us to hear what Destiny said there. He zoomed through it. That's very dishonest editing.
Most of their time pretending to not know what their opponent is talking about and trying to pick apart their opponent with pedantic details.
Oftentimes a lack of a prescriptive statement. It seems like there's a little bit of fear of committing to any particular idea about what an ideal immigrant would look like.
Which essentially... most of their time pretending to not know what their opponent is talking about and trying to pick apart their opponent with pedantic details.
Oftentimes a lack of a prescriptive statement. It seems like there's a little bit of fear of committing to any particular idea about what an ideal immigrant would look like.
Which is...
that was important information that he zoomed through. He's talking about that he's perceiving a lack of prescriptive statement that would allow understanding as to what the qualifying criteria would be for an ideal immigrant. Why is he just speeding through this? And he's just calling it pedantic. I find that a lot of thinkers who lack serious rigor themselves, who lack education, who lack high order conceptual organization in their own mind, often hand wave away important specificity as pedantic, because they don't have the knowledge or skills to be able to discern what's actually being said and why it matters. And that's, and of course that is based on my own conversational experience when I'm looking for, clarification of with regards to someone's beliefs, and I outline some of the most important criteria we need to touch. I get responses like, do you really do we really need to do that? It seems really pedantic. And I'll be like, well, it's necessary in order to fully understand where your belief is coming from, like what your justification is and things like this. So again, I wonder if he's going to demonstrate how this is pedantic and how it's not necessary, but I doubt it because he's just zoomed through it like there was nothing of meaning there said.
Opponent is talking about and trying to pick apart their opponent with pedantic details.
Oftentimes a lack of a prescriptive statement. It seems like there's a little bit of fear of committing to any particular idea about what an ideal immigrant would look like.
Which essentially just always derails the debate. Now, don't get me wrong, semantics are very important if you are seeking to actually gain clarity and progress the debate. However, this can also be used as a technique to unnecessarily kill time. And
so this is an example of negative utilitarianism or suffering avoidance calculus. Just because it can be used as a tactic, it seems like that is a justification for him, like adding to this sentiment towards this is what destiny is doing. Very bad. Negative utilitarianism is a bug and not a feature. It is a feature in human evolutionary history in order to make us good survivors. But when you're applying it in through this modern lens of analyzing a debate, destiny could be doing this. So, because of all these other things I think about him, I'm going to believe that he is doing that. And now I know he's doing that. It's really, really bad thinking, bad expression of one's cognition.
And it appears as though it is especially useful when a conservative actually gain clarity and progress the debate. However, this can also be used as a technique to unnecessarily kill time. And it appears as though it is especially useful when a conservative is making a good point.
Being used to kill time. There's a lot of mind reading going on by this individual.
Probably talking about different kinds of immigrants.
This way, they don't actually have to respond to the point you're making. They can just hone in on and argue with any little bit of pedantry, which is what Destiny is doing here and which is what he loves doing the most.
There's unprecedented things happening definitionally every year forward into the future we go.
No, that's not true.
And last bit,
yes, that part is true. There are unprecedented things happening all the time around us as we move further into the future. We already discussed that in the last review clip, but that was interesting that he used that as kind of a gotcha clip when actually Destiny was correct about the usage of unprecedented there.
Most.
There's unprecedented things happening definitionally every year forward into the future we go.
No, that's not true.
And last bit,
So, and again, there's this issue of, and I think this person is also suffering from this, and it is, a mind cancer, that if you really like the trajectory of a speaker, like he seems to like Konstantin Kisin here and dislike Destiny, it's kind of like he's not going to fact check what he's saying or what's being said by Destiny or the other guy. He's just going to take on gospel, on faith, what this other, other speaker is saying. And Konstantin Kisin, the person he agrees with more. This is not the way to think rigorously. This is, you're going to make all kinds of errors and believe false things. So far, Mr. Rattlesnake here is doing a very poor job at analyzing this discussion. It just seems just so caked in bias.
On definitions. The good faith right-wingers actually want to pin the left-wingers down on their definitions. They actually want their definitions so that they can seek clarity and then have the rest of the debate. Because if the lefties actually give a definition, then they have to stick to that. And
it was very interesting that he used a clip of Kathy Newman and Jordan Peterson there. That is apropos based on the review we just did of Warren Smith's debate review.
On definitions. The good faith right-wingers actually want to pin the left-wingers down on their definitions. They actually want their definitions so that they can seek clarity and then have the rest of the debate. Because if the lefties actually give a definition, then they have to stick to that. And they can't just equivocate. And equivocation just means playing fast and loose with definitions. It means jumping between definitions for a certain word or for a certain term and using it interchangeably throughout the course of a debate.
Yeah, he's ascribing this... intellectually, lefties in his mind are completely demonized. He's responding to a caricature of them. I am technically on, people call me center left, I guess. That's where I land on the political spectrum. Is he going to say that's what I'm doing? And I would love to see his, empirical demonstration of that. So this is just a low resolution way. I can never imagine making sweeping claims like that about, tens, if not hundreds of millions of people. This is how they argue. And then, being completely biased in your lensing of the people on your own side. It's like, it's You know, it's dog shit epistemology. I use this term all the time. It's just what it is. It's dog shit epistemology.
And they can't just equivocate. An equivocation just means playing fast and loose with definitions. It means jumping between definitions for a certain word or for a certain term and using it interchangeably throughout the course of a debate. And you'll very often see them do this and use the equivocation fallacy when it comes to words like racism, for example, or words like violence. So right-wingers want to pin them down so they don't do that. But left-wingers will just use definitions in order to derail the debate and never respond to what the conservatives are saying. So Destiny just did this with the word unprecedented, pretending that he doesn't know what Konstantin Kisin means when Konstantin mentioned.
Again, he's ascribing this analysis to Destiny by way of mind reading. He's saying he is pretending
that there has been unprecedented mass migration into Western countries. And now he's about to do it again with culture.
I just explained to you repeatedly what unprecedented means. It means that it hasn't happened before. There have been times in the history of this country when its immigration was in the tens of thousands, and for us to go back to that would not be going forward to something unprecedented. It would be returning to something that we used to do.
Sure.
And just to read this into the record for this part, again, unprecedented. We looked up the colloquial usages, the colloquial definitions, the main usage being never done or known before. So we could say, every time an athlete breaks a record at the Olympics, this would be unprecedented.
Right.
My question
and so what has happened in the last 30
I understand
years
what's happened. You've explained
is
this several
unprecedented.
times. Is there anything in U.S. culture, in British culture, that has remained the same for the past 30, 40, 50, 60 years, for the past 100 years, that doesn't have an unprecedented thing happening constantly?
Absolutely. I mean, that is what a culture is. It was what is preserved over time.
How?
A culture is what people do without having been told to do so by a law.
So a culture is something that is preserved over time, what people do, if not having to be told so by law. These are own like private language definitions of culture. We went through this in the last review, but the colloquial usage, the definitions that we will find in academia, the usages of culture would be more closely related to manifestations of human intellectual achievement. A disconnection here? Oh no, we're reconnected. Okay, great. I think I got disconnected for a second there. Yes, I'm friends with Destiny. I'm friends with Jordan Peterson. I'm friends with a lot of people I've worked with. I haven't worked with Konstantin Kisin enough to really consider him a friend. We've just done one event together. Yeah, but if you watch my reviews of Destiny's work on the Pangburn stage and the reviews of the debate here, just because Destiny's my friend, it doesn't mean he's free from my analytical wrath on the Pangburn stage. So there was a lot of time taken last night to critique Destiny and his various postures throughout the course of this conversation.
Yeah, but what is an example of a culture
This was what is preserved over time.
How?
A culture is what people do without having been told to do so by a law.
But what is an example of a culture that is unchanging?
How much have you traveled around the world?
Probably more than you?
Probably not, actually.
Okay. So then you should be able to very easily answer. Here's an example of a culture that exists
all the time. But if you were to be plonked in 1970s Afghanistan and 1990s Afghanistan and 2010s Afghanistan and 1950s Britain, 1970s Britain and 2010s Britain, there would be common themes that run through both of those places so that you would instantly recognize, I am in Afghanistan, I am in Britain. Would you accept that?
I agree that different cultures are different, yes.
Right, well done. Good. So we've got there then.
Well, you just established that there are. This is like saying
different cultures are different, which means that they
wasn't
have
the
something
question.
about them.
Yes, and
that makes them different.
If
right?
you have a brother, both of you will be different for your entire lives. But that
there
doesn't
would
mean,
be a family culture that you have that's different to other families.
But you wouldn't be the same as you were when you were 10 years old.
No,
you would
wouldn't.
grow and change,
of
right?
Course.
So when you talk about
but you're still the same
culture,
person, right?
What?
You're still the same person.
Yeah, but you're dramatically changed.
But you're still the same.
No. Are you the same as you were 10 or 15 years ago? What do you mean by that? The same. You're not unchanged.
Did we get
right?
reconnected? I lost you guys for a minute there.
Are you
Sorry.
pretending to be a moron, or are you actually being one?
So he definitely...
Yeah, sorry about that. I don't know why I'm having connection issues here. But it looks like we're back. But I have my hotspot ready here just in case. Sometimes when the wind picks up here in Oaxaca, I live in Oaxaca, Mexico, it messes with the internet, and sometimes I lose power. So hopefully we're not going through another windstorm.
Definitely is one, but once again, we've...
Are you pretending to be a moron, or are you actually being one?
So he definitely is one, but once again, we've got...
So Rattlesnake says here he definitely is a moron. This doesn't add anything to his credibility. It makes him seem like a simple-minded absorber of the information that he's trying to analyze. So he would be better to, not lean into like personal attacks. It's just it's very low resolution. It's troglodyte level philosophical analysis or analysis of any kind. So yeah, it's a bad posture.
Are you pretending to be a moron, or are you actually being one?
So he definitely is one, but once again, we've got the typical derailing happening.
Are you the same as you were 10 or 15 years ago? What do you mean by that?
I mean, Konstantin is offering a definition of culture here, and this is actually not an easy thing to do because this is one of those things that's not overly easy to define.
It is actually quite easy to define if you study. What you would do is you would study academic conceptualizations of what culture is. So if you're going to go into a debate where you're going to be handling culture or being asked to define it or define culture, you ought try to be as academically rigorous as you can. So let's go through this. So we gave the colloquial meanings of culture. So the most common usage is other manifestations or manifestations of human intellectual achievement regarded collectively. So now let's look at what different academic disciplines have to say. So in academic disciplines such as anthropology, sociology, and cultural studies, culture has a fairly standardized meaning. While definitions vary slightly by field, the core idea is consistent. Culture refers to the shared systems of meaning, practices, and learned behaviors that characterize a group of people. So again, shared systems of meaning, practices, and learned behaviors that characterize a group of people. So, when you are going into a debate and you're trying to talk about culture, you should try to be academically rigorous. Everyone should be shooting for higher order, higher resolution understandings and levels of conceptual organization. That's what being a good philosopher is all about. We are all just like how someone who has been to one piano lesson, they are a piano player, they've done it. They're a very low resolution piano player. We are all engaged in conceptual organization, and that is what philosophy is. So we are all philosophers. We are all not academic philosophers. We are not all analytic philosophers or idealist philosophers or anything like this, but we are all engaged in conceptual organization. So we ought be shooting for higher resolution versions of that. Why? Because the higher resolution conceptual organization that we have, the better we will be able to serve whatever purposes we want or we desire. Whatever your purposes are will be better served by higher levels, higher order conceptual organization.
A culture is what people do without having been told to do so by a law.
I mean, some ideas are not actually very easy to put into words. They're intangible, almost ineffable, like culture. It tends to be one of those things that you actually recognize before you can properly articulate it. Every time I go to Britain, for example, I feel that the culture is being gradually eroded. Yes, in a dramatic sense, but also in the small...
Now, this is actually a decent posture by this person creating the video, Mr. Rattlesnake. He's talking about his experience, how he feels when he travels. This is a much better posture, a much better, speaking more like a fallibilist. Let's hear that again.
Articulated. Every time I go to Britain, easy to define.
A culture is what people do without having been told to do so by a law.
I mean, some ideas are not actually very easy to put into words. They're intangible, almost ineffable, like culture. It tends to be one of those things that you actually recognize.
God, my internet keeps cutting out. Okay. Yeah, we're probably going through a windstorm here right now. It sucks. Anyways, I'll push through. Let's see the stream health here. Now it's saying the stream health is excellent. So sorry about that, but I do want to get through this this video, and then we'll probably cut the stream after that.
Before you can properly articulate it. Every time I go to Britain, for example, I feel that the culture is being gradually eroded. Yes, in a dramatic sense, but also in the small everyday things, the countryside, the pubs, the way people dress, the habits of politeness. These are all distinctly British expressions of culture. But at the same time, none of these things necessarily define the people themselves. They're actually outwards expressions of something much deeper, which is why culture is something that is hard to precisely describe. It's a pattern that's made up of subtle signals, but you know when you see it and you know when you're in it. So while it's difficult to capture perfectly, I think Konstantin Kisin did a perfectly fine job of defining it. Anyway.
So why is that my password for my hotspot? Okay. That should work. Okay, now we are connected through my hotspot. Okay, so what's the stream health looking like? It's telling me excellent, so we might lose some frames, but...
Anyways, for the next 20 minutes, Konstantin proceeds to have to, for the next 20 minutes, describe. It's a pattern that's made up of subtle signals, but you know when you see it and you know when you're in it. So while it's difficult to capture perfectly, I think Konstantin Kisin did a perfectly fine job of defining it. Anyways, for the next 20 minutes, Konstantin proceeds to have to parent Destiny and tell him to stop speaking out of line and interrupting incessantly, which is definitely necessary, before Konstantin actually flips the script on him and uses Destiny's own tactics against him.
We actually did the analysis last night. Konstantin Kisin interrupted more in that first section than Destiny. If you want to check out that analysis, it's a 5.5 hour analysis, but it exists in our live tab. It'll say full debate analysis. But yeah, it exists in our live tab. You should be able to find it.
against him when they start arguing about wokeness. Let's get into
Forget
it.
about conservatism. Let's
Okay.
talk about wokeness. So
Okay.
what would be your definition of wokeness?
For the next 20 minutes, Konstantin
Just have to
proceeds
rewind a
to have to
second here.
parent Destiny and tell him to
Little
stop
lag on
speaking
my
out of
end,
line and
unfortunately.
interrupting incessantly, which is definitely necessary, before Konstantin actually flips the script on him and uses Destiny's own tactics against him when they start arguing about wokeness. Let's get into
Forget
it.
about
man.
conservatism. Let's
We haven't really established any examples or demonstrated these particular tactics that Destiny is supposedly using outside of mind reading.
talk about wokeness. So
Okay.
what would be your definition of wokeness?
In the broadest sense, usually it's social issues that are very, very far left of the norm, I guess. But these positions in the United States, at least, tend to be held by.
Such as?
It might be certain things related to. I mean, trans people are obviously the hot go-to topic for everybody. It might be things specifically related to trans people. It might be things related to. They call it CRT. Now they call it, or there was affirmative action, then CRT, then DEI. It might be people who are socialists, about the economy, or whatever that means to people. It really depends on where you're at. Who would
So
consider
we've been
what
through
or
all
what
of
the
this.
conservative
Let
boogeyman
me
of the
get-
day is.
I don't know what the conservative point of view. So your point of view is that wokeness is about trans
The
people
reaction
and
of
DEI?
the reviewer
In
here.
Now,
terms,
be
if you
quiet.
want, well, I'm only
Be
going to
quiet.
everybody to be quiet.
Be quiet.
I'll define my terms if you want
Be
me
quiet.
to, but wokeism
Be
is from you
quiet.
guys
It
use.
took me about 10 minutes to get you to define woke. I'm glad we did it. Now we can have
Now
the
you're gonna
actual
use my
discussion.
definition. I'm glad I could
Now
provide
we
you
can
with
have
one.
the
Go
actual
for it.
discussion.
Okay.
Now we can have the actual discussion.
So Konstantin is actually right about this because, like we said before, all Destiny's doing, all he can do here is be pedantic and try and argue with Konstantin and pretend that he doesn't understand.
All Destiny can do is being pedantic. This is like all leftists, all Destiny can do. This is just overgeneralization, and it's fallacious to do this. And it's not convincing. It doesn't give you the posture, the presentation of being someone who's an unbiased thinker. You just look completely caked in bias and trying to like sell a product to people. Very low resolution again, philosophically.
What Konstantin means by...
Okay.
Now we can have the actual discussion.
So Konstantin is actually right about this because, like we said before, all Destiny's doing, all he can do here is be pedantic and try and argue with Konstantin and pretend that he doesn't understand what Konstantin means by unprecedented and by culture and all of these really super pedantic things. And Destiny actually never does just define and articulate things himself. And whenever...
Yes, he does. Destiny defined wokeism, right? He also defined what a dictator is, or dictatorship, in the third section of the debate. So that's just false.
he does try and do that, it goes things. And Destiny actually never does just define and articulate things himself. And whenever he does try and do that, he goes off into some sort of meth jaw, mouth breathing prattle about all sorts of different things.
So there's more unnecessary attacks. This is lowering the well-being score for this individual. In order to be a good person, you should be trying to maximize well-being for yourself and those around you at a minimum. That means, and by well-being, of course, I mean physical, mental, and social health. He seems to not give a shit about Destiny's physical, mental, or social health when he says things like this, or maybe people who might be hurt by him saying meth jaw, whatever about Destiny, and he might respond by saying, "Well, Destiny does that to other people. Really, is that how you calculate the good life? You are engaged in some kind of eye for an eye morality calculus, the same as ancient Sumerians, 7,000 years ago. This is a really bad posture. It makes you seem like a bad person, Mr. Rattlesnake."
Things. And Destiny actually never does just define and articulate things himself. And whenever he does try and do that, he goes off into some sort of meth jaw, mouth breathing prattle about all sorts of different things. But the funny part there was actually that Konstantin did the good faith thing and tried.
If this was coming from a place of playfulness, in that like he was friendly with Destiny and they had that kind of relationship to engage in this back and forth banter, this would be different. Then that would be a lighthearted, playful, teasing way of jabbing him. But this is not the case in this circumstance.
Tried to get a definition going, things. And Destiny actually never does just define and articulate things himself. And whenever he does try and do that, he goes off into some sort of meth jaw, mouth breathing prattle about all sorts of different things. But the funny part there was actually that Konstantin did the good faith thing and tried to get a definition going. He genuinely sought a definition so that they could agree on that and then move on and then debate the thing.
I wonder if he knows what good faith means. I mean, good faith refers to honesty and sincerity of intentions. A lot of people are confused at what good faith means. They often confuse it with helpfulness. And in this case, he's talking about Konstantin doing the helpful thing in asking or providing a definition.
Thing that they both agreed about the definition of. And Destiny was absolutely shocked. He thought that there was definitely going to be a sleight of hand there. Because like we said before, the progressives live in the land of pretending to not understand things. And they can't understand why somebody...
So this guy is very much like a pastor of a religion. That's kind of what I'm getting from here. It's like the evildoers, the atheists, want to drag you down with them to hell. And by God, I'm not gonna let them do it. We need to understand the enemy and what they do, the tactics they use to, poison the minds of your children. Like, this is on that level. And honestly, like it was a more soft-spoken version of that. But the last guy, Warren Smith, very similar. Like, these guys seem like pastors of a religion, trying to, make people believe in a particular doctrine, us versus them, othering of large swaths of people.
Would genuinely want to get a definition of these basic things and then move on with the debate. Anyways, the next part is very entertaining. Konstantin gets him very good here.
So Marvarosi in the comment section, you mean the same thing that Destiny does about conservatives? Yes, he does do that sometimes. Yes. And I call him out for it, and I critique him on that. It's not a good posture. But let's not get into whataboutism. What do you think about that particular critique I just laid against this Mr. Rattlesnake guy?
Including ethno-nationalist sentiment.
Things, and then move on with the debate. Anyways, the next part is very entertaining. Konstantin gets him very good here.
Including...
Yes, he does do that in this debate, and we addressed that last night in our 5.5 hour session. And if you review that, you will see my, heavy-handed critiques for Destiny by falling into that.
Ethno-nationalist sentiment is because of this. And the reason I opposed wokeness from the very beginning and far-left progressivism from the very beginning
go back to
was that
Mr.
it was
Rattlesnake
obvious
here.
to me that the number one concept...
Just so he doesn't have to contend with the evidence that is literally in...
Just to be clear, just so I can understand.
Thank you.
Is this
So Destiny is the kind of guy that will just keep on talking and arguing for the sake of arguing.
So he keeps making all these claims, but he's not substantiating them with evidence. Like, if he's going to say this, give an
in these
example.
sorts of situations, even if he is so clearly and blatantly wrong. Notice what he did here. He lost the point. He got called out, and then on cue, he started pretending to not know what was going on.
Just to be clear, just so I can understand.
Thank you.
Is this...
He started being pedantic.
He didn't let him speak there. He didn't demonstrate it. This is what religious people often do with strong critiques from atheists. Like, I see this happen. Like, and obviously, like, I'm talking within. Right now, I'm not talking empirically. I'm talking within the realm of my experience. When I see a religious person or pastor go through a review of what an atheist is saying, the clips that they clip out are very divisive. They're not giving the whole context. So my challenge to Rattlesnake TV guy would be to give the full context if you're going to critique something. It makes you seem dishonest or like you're trying to hide something.
And obfuscating away to subjects like abortion and trans and the president.
I can understand.
Thank you.
Is this...
He started being pedantic and obfuscating away to subjects like abortion and trans and the president is bombing Iran. Just
And notice how I said I see religious people do this all the time when I was responding there. I didn't say all religious people do this or all pastors do this. There's a big difference. I'm speaking to my experience of what I've seen. This rattlesnake guy has not seen all of these other examples of quote unquote leftists debating.
Just so he doesn't have to be and blatantly wrong. Notice what he did here. He lost the point. He got called out, and then on cue, he started pretending to not know.
Again,
what was going on.
he's claiming to be able to read the mind of destiny. Oh, he's pretending here. How do you know that?
The Royal Air Force.
I can understand.
Thank you.
Is this
He started being pedantic and obfuscating away to subjects like abortion and trans and the president is bombing Iran, just so he doesn't have to contend with.
So he's not going to let his audience hear destiny speak here.
The evidence that is literally in front of him, that the Royal Air Force.
He's just gonna ask them to believe, it seems, on faith what he is saying. Why else would he just be delivering this information selectively to his audience? It's a dishonest posture.
Had a hiring policy which was discriminatory against white males. And the article that they're talking about here from Sky News goes on to state that these were a part of leaked emails that exposed the pressure placed on recruitment officers to improve diversity. It says that selection boards were also cancelled if they did not include women or ethnic minorities, according to the messages, which have been seen by Sky News. Furthermore, it can also be revealed that the Air Force is paying £5,000 each to 31 white men, a total of £155,000, taxpayer dollars, who it found had been unfairly disadvantaged by the recruitment policy. So, I mean, pretty black and white there, not much to argue about. Unless, of course, you're a progressive.
It's not black and white, so let's pull up our fact check for that section. On the RAF issue. Oh, okay. I believe that was in section 2, so I got to pull up that PDF here. All right. Fact check part 2. Okay. The claim was that the Royal Air Force, a supervisor said, "We're not hiring any more useless straight white men," she said. This was discriminatory, and she was fired. So this claim was partly true, but Kisin compresses several facts together and overstates the exact policy claim. So this is based on a real RAF recruitment scandal. The RAF's own published statement says an independent inquiry found unlawful discrimination against white male candidates in pursuit of diversity ambitions, and says those ambitions had become unbalanced. So the core point that, quote, white men were unlawfully discriminated against in RAF recruiting is supported. Sky's reporting on the inquiry likewise says the RAF unlawfully discriminated against white male recruits in a bid to boost diversity. But Destiny's pushback was also substantially correct. That is not the same thing as a blanket official policy of not hiring straight white men. So Destiny was referring to a blanket official policy of not hiring straight white men. He even asks Konstantin Kisin if this was a policy. The proven finding is unlawful discrimination in favor of women and ethnic minorities to meet targets, not a literal total ban on hiring straight white men. Kisin's first formulation in the debate was broader than the evidence supports, and then Destiny pushed and called him out for that. You guys can watch it. And then he later reformulated to what was closer to accurate. But initially, what got Destiny kind of bent out of shape and his skeptical hairs were going woo, 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 was that this was being described as though it was like a blanket policy by the RAF, which it wasn't. Well, here's something, Matthew. You say, in other words, Kisin was being misleading. You don't know that he was being purposefully misleading here. Let's not get into mind reading. Mind reading is just low resolution thinking. Let's not fall into that.
Just to be clear, just so I can understand.
Anyways, moving on to another point in arguments, the last one here that I literally can't believe that they're still making. Let's carry on.
It's rewritten a lot in the media. I see you talk about it, and a lot of other people talk about it. Why is it that so many people are obsessed with pretending that when Donald Trump said that there were good people on both sides of that Charlottesville protest, why are people pretending that it was anything other than saying that the people in like the far-right neo-Nazi march had like good people in it? I don't understand where this like historical rewriting comes from.
Have you seen the clip?
Yes, I've seen all the speeches.
So you've seen that he says, I'm not talking about the KKK and neo-nationalists who should be condemned totally. I'm talking about some of the people who were there to protest about the statue.
So yeah, a better posture here, a better statement is his statement was misleading. Target the statement. Yeah, he was... Yeah. Okay. So yeah. Let me clarify. If you say, in other words, Kisin was being misleading, it does require clarification because it sounds like when you say that he was intending to be misleading, and that could be my interpretation, but I think you could be a little more precise with the language there because I did interpret that to be you were applying an intentionality to him there. So
yeah, but that doesn't make sense because it was a KKK neo-Nazi march.
Well, what he's saying is that there were two groups there.
But there weren't. Rattlesnake.
Hold on. What he's saying... So your argument is, did he defend the KKK and neo-Nazis? I don't think he did that.
Every single person that was there that was a neo-Nazi felt like they had been defended by Donald Trump.
Their subjective feeling is not the issue here.
It's literally definition, the only thing that matters, because they're the ones organizing the marches. And if Richard Spencer and these other guys are saying, yeah, I think Donald Trump made a nothing burger statement.
Okay, so because the neo-Nazis felt like Trump was defending him, which I don't think that they actually did feel like he was defending them. I don't think that they actually liked Trump at all because Trump is an ardent supporter of Israel. The neo-Nazis, not so much. I don't think that they necessarily see eye to eye on these sorts.
Yeah, just because they disagree on Israel doesn't mean that they wouldn't have liked feeling supported by the president. So
thing. Anyways, apparently they felt supported, and even if we just grant this means, and this is the logical entailment of what Destiny's saying, this means that Trump supports them, which means what, guys? That Trump is a fascist, that Trump is a Nazi. Wow, that's...
Destiny did not make that claim that Trump is a fascist or a Nazi.
The smoking gun. That is still the smoking gun, guys. Absolutely incredible. It is just so pathetic. I mean, I actually think, guys...
That's not the claim Destiny made. So he's talking to he's referring to a straw man or something else. But again, you're just like in the last video with Warren Smith. He's relying heavily on mind reading here as to, well, this is what he must be getting at.
I said if I
as opposed to judging him based on the actual things he's saying, which by judging how this video is laid out, I'm not sure if he's even listened to what Destiny is saying. There wasn't much here that, allowed for what this person is referring to. He should be showing the entirety of that moment, not speeding through it. It comes off as dishonest journalism, I guess I would say.
Just that Trump is a Nazi. Wow, that's the smoking gun. That is still the smoking gun, guys. Absolutely incredible. It is just so pathetic. I mean, I actually think, guys, that if I put on some blue hair tomorrow, and if I got my septum pierced and started posing as a progressive, started taking Adderall, these sorts of things. Ha! Gay! I think I would actually do a much better job at critiquing Trump and MAGA than these guys. But anyways, guys, I won't be giving away.
Let's hear that again. I think this is an attempt at being lighthearted, but it's mean-spirited. So again, I think this individual is he comes off as a bit of a bully in some of this, and most of you, any of you who know me, you know how I feel about bullies. Bullies ought be exposed, and bullies, of course, should change their ways. They shouldn't bully people. So
not so much.
Let's listen to this again.
They necessarily see eye to eye on these sorts of things. Anyways, apparently they felt supported, and even if we just grant this means, and this is the logical entailment of what Destiny's saying, this means that Trump supports them, which means what, guys? That Trump is a fascist.
He said that that's the logical entailment of what Destiny is saying. That's just straight out false. Give me the quotation. Put the logic into a syllogism for me and see if it's sound. It's not sound logic. You're mind reading.
That Trump is a Nazi. Wow, that's the smoking gun. That is still the smoking gun, guys. Absolutely not so much. I don't think that they necessarily see eye to eye on these sorts of things. Anyways, apparently they felt supported, and even if we just grant this means, and this is the logical entailment of what Destiny's saying, this means that Trump supports them, which means what, guys? That Trump is a fascist. That Trump is a Nazi. Wow, that's the smoking gun. That is still the smoking gun, guys. Absolutely incredible. It is just so pathetic. I mean, I actually think, guys, that if I put on some blue hair tomorrow, and if I got my septum pierced and started posing as a progressive, started taking Adderall, these sorts of things. Ha! Gay! I think I would actually do a much better job at critiquing Trump and MAGA than these guys. But anyways, guys, I won't be giving away that secret sauce. Last point here. In terms of the comparison between Trump...
Yeah, he comes off in moments of this video as a mean-spirited bully. And that's not a good posture for anyone. I would say the same for Destiny if he was doing that, for anyone else if they're doing that. This is like, it's like maybe this is funny to his audience. I don't know, but he should be out in the world trying to maximize well-being for himself and those around him. And this is not it. I don't know if this guy claims to be a Christian or whatever, but yeah, yikes.
Supporting the neo-Nazis, and the Democrats actually supporting BLM and actually supporting the terrorists inside of the United States. It's hard to actually overstate how bad faith they are, and we should never be deceived for 1 second into thinking that they're making a respectable point. Because if you hold the left to their own standards when it comes to these things, it looks very bleak for them. I don't need to remind you all of the riots, the burning down of cities, the militias being formed, and the rest. Trump actually didn't mean what they say he meant about supporting neo-Nazis. He clearly did not say that. He said that he condemns them in that same speech. But the left actually...
Okay, let's do a fact check on this first. Where is... Oh, I need number 3 up here. Fact check 3. Oops. Wrong one. There we go. Okay. So, Charlottesville. Did Trump defend neo-Nazis? The verdict. Kisin is right on the narrow quotation issue. Destiny was stronger on the broader context. So Trump did explicitly say he was not talking about neo-Nazis and white nationalists and said they should be condemned totally. Factcheck.org has long noted that Trump did condemn white supremacists in various statements, including the Charlottesville context. So Kisin is right that the cleanest version of the Trump explicitly called neo-Nazis good people claim is not supported by the transcript. But Destiny's broader contextual point also has force. The event was the, quote, Unite the Right rally organized by the far right, and Trump's very fine people on both sides framing was widely condemned precisely because it blurred the moral character of the pro-statue side in the context. So the narrow syntax point favors Kisin, while the broader political judgment favors Destiny here. And I think we're done with this guy. So, after going through these two reviews, I want to look at something here. What is propaganda? Propaganda is a form of communication designed to influence people's beliefs, emotions, or actions in a way that serves a specific political, ideological, or institutional agenda, often by selectively presenting information, framing narratives, or appealing to emotion rather than balanced evidence. The academic definition in fields like political science, communication studies, and sociology, propaganda is typically defined as a systematic attempt to shape perceptions, manipulate cognitions, and direct behavior to achieve a response that furthers the desired intent of the propagandist. Key characteristics of propaganda: intentional persuasion. It is deliberately designed to influence attitudes or behavior. Selective or distorted information. Facts may be cherry-picked, exaggerated, or omitted. Emotional appeals. Often uses fear, pride, anger, or identity to motivate audiences. Mass communication, typically distributed through media, speeches, posters, social media, or cultural messaging. Political or ideological goals, frequently used by governments, political movements, cooperations, or activist groups. Common propaganda techniques. Scholars often identify recurring techniques such as bandwagon. Everyone believes this, so you should too. Scapegoating, blaming a group for complex problems. Loaded language, using emotionally charged terms. Glittering generalities. Vague positive words like freedom, justice. Fear appeals. If you don't support this, disaster will happen. Card stacking, showing only one side of evidence. Important academic clarification. Not all persuasive communication is propaganda. Researchers usually distinguish the type: information, attempt to present facts accurately. Persuasion, attempts to change attitudes but may still present competing views. Propaganda, highly strategic persuasion that often suppress counter information. And then we have some historical examples. War mobilization, World War I, World War II posters. Totalitarian regimes, Nazi Germany, Soviet Union. Cold War messaging, modern political campaigns, corporate advertising. A modern academic view. Many scholars argue propaganda today often appears as narrative framing rather than obvious lies. It can involve controlling which topics are discussed, emphasizing some statistics while ignoring others, moral framing of political issues, identity-based narratives. In short, propaganda is strategic mass persuasion aimed at shaping beliefs and behavior in service of an agenda, often using selective information and emotional framing rather than balanced evidence. So I think if we look at all of these key characteristics and common propaganda techniques and look at what we reviewed today through a propaganda lens, I think we have some examples embedded within some of these reviewers' videos of propaganda. Not to say the entire thing is, but definitely some instances of that. We should not be engaging in propaganda. It should be obvious as a moral agent that we ought move away from that kind of thing. The war of ideas should be about engaging in a good faith, helpful way with each other. That is to say, engaging in a way that is grounded in honesty and sincerity of intention with each other, and living within an air of helpfulness, trying to help each other in the dialectic, in the conversation. These two reviewers today didn't seem to be very helpful. I think they probably honestly believe what they're reporting. That's the most likely scenario. They honestly believe this, and they're honestly giving their best effort in trying to analyze and dissect this debate. But both of these individuals gave a very, very low resolution take, very biased take. And I think the analysis today showed that. Now what I want to do is take the transcript here from this review, and we're going to run it through the Pangburn virtue analysis system. And again, the Pangburn virtue analysis, things are analyzed by the standards of the 6 Pangburn virtues and maxims. And just quickly, the 6 Pangburn virtues and maxims. Fallibilism. Certainty is almost certainly unattainable. Well-being. Maximize well-being for yourself and those around you. Communication. Good faith and helpfulness are the minimum requirements for a fruitful dialectic. Patience. Ultimate patience even in the face of detestable ideas. Light-heartedness. Refine and express your sense of humor. And inspiration. Let art and science inspire. So, let's run this. Now, the score for the last individual, sorry, his name escapes me. Was a 4.4 out of 10, a failing grade from a Pangburn virtue analysis standpoint. Okay, and this person's name is Jake, Mr. Rattlesnake. Jake the Snake. Wrestling. Okay. Fallibilism. This reviewer shows some awareness of conceptual ambiguity, but very little authentic epistemic humility. He is far more interested in exposing the opponent than in testing his own interpretation. Some supporting evidence here would be from the 40-second mark to the minute and 5-second mark. He frames the debate in highly asymmetrical terms before the analysis has even begun. Quote, one of which has a worldview derived from Wikipedia talking points, and the other person has a well-formulated worldview. And then Destiny, who's more of a who's more of the unhinged, detached from reality, blue-haired, mouth-breathing liberal type. This is not fallibilist scene setting. It is preloaded interpretive capture. He is telling the audience in advance who the unserious participant is and who the substantive one is. That does not prove bias by itself, but it strongly indicates a prior commitment that shapes the analysis. At 8 minutes and 17 seconds to 8 minutes and 55 seconds, he asserts that leftists, quote, spend most of their time pretending to not know what their opponent is talking about. At 1806 to 1856, he says, destiny never does just define and articulate things himself, and claims progressives, quote, live in the land of pretending to not understand things. These are sweeping, psychologically certain claims. He does not phrase them tentatively. He does not say, it seems, in this moment, or this may be a pattern. He universalizes quickly and confidently. At minute 22 and 34 seconds to 23 and 45, once the RAF article is mentioned, he concludes the matter is pretty black and white there, not much to argue about, unless, of course, you're a progressive. That is an especially anti-fallibilist move. Even if the article is genuinely probative, a fallibilist commentator would still distinguish between what the headline suggests, what the underlying policy was, whether the case was systematic or episodic, what inferences can and cannot fairly be drawn. Instead, the reviewer jumps almost immediately from evidence to total interpretive closure. So some stronger side of his fallibilism. To his credit, he does understand that some words are genuinely difficult to define. This was when we pointed out that section actually where he had a decent posture when he was delivering information in a very honest, helpful way. And that some ideas are recognized before they can be fully articulated. That is actually a fairly decent epistemic observation. It acknowledges that language has limits and that not every concept is neatly reducible. Likewise, at 848 to 855, he notes that semantics can be important if you are seeking to actually gain clarity. This is true, and it's a good fallibilist posture. The score here for fallibilism is a dreadfully failing grade. It's a 3.8 out of 10 for Jake the Snake. So the summary for fallibilism is he has some conceptual sensitivity, but it is overrun by partisan overconfidence. He behaves less like a truth seeker, probing uncertainty, and more like an advocate, explaining why his side obviously won. Well-being. Corresponding maxim, maximize well-being for yourself and those around you. And by well-being, I almost always will mean, unless something changes, physical, mental, and social health. So, core judgment. The reviewer appears motivated in part by concern over social disorder, discrimination, and cultural breakdown. Sorry, just have to pull this up for a second. Cultural breakdown. Those can be legitimate well-being concerns, but the way he frames them often inflames antagonism rather than increasing resolution or human flourishing. So the supporting evidence for this is 13 minutes 26 seconds to 13 minutes 56 seconds when he talks about Britain, pubs, politeness, countryside, habits, and subtle cultural patterns. There is a recognizable concern for civilizational continuity, belonging, and shared life. That is not inherently anti-well-being. Concern for social fabric can be part of well-being ethic. Likewise, his criticism of discriminatory hiring practices, if accurate, is not bad in and of itself. If an institution is disadvantaging applicants on racial grounds, objecting to that can absolutely be grounded in fairness and well-being. However, the problem is his broader rhetorical ecosystem. At 105, he describes destiny as mouth breathing. At 1822 to 1831, he says destiny goes into some sort of meth jaw, mouth breathing prattle. At 2825 to 2841, he caricatures progressives through blue hair, septum piercings, Adderall, and sexualized identity-coded mockery. At 2922 to 2938, he says the left actually do support the terrorists who burn down cities. This is not language optimized for well-being. It is antagonistic identity rhetoric. It intensifies contempt, broadens out-group hostility, and makes mutual recognition harder. A Pangburnian well-being analysis asks, does this discourse increase clarity while reducing unnecessary dehumanization? Here, too often, the answer is no. An important nuance. He is not calling for direct violence in this transcript. He is not reveling in cruelty for cruelty's sake. He is arguing within a political frame and expressing moral outrage about issues he sees as socially destructive. That matters. This is not the absolute bottom tier of well-being conduct, but he repeatedly chooses the kind of framing that turns discourse into a war of stereotypes rather than an attempt to reduce harm. So the summary here, there is some concern for social outcomes, fairness, and cultural continuity, but the delivery and tribal escalation undermine the well-being value of the commentary. So in saying that, he gets a failing grade for well-being in this review video at a 4.9 out of 10. Communication. Good faith and helpfulness are the minimum requirements for a fruitful dialectic. This is one of the most interesting categories for him because he is better than average at spotting communication breakdowns, yet he himself repeatedly violates Pangburnian communication through contemptuous framing, asymmetrical charity, and overconfident mind reading. Strengths. He is not wrong that definitions matter. At 922 to 1016, his discussion of equivocation is broadly intelligible and useful. He explains why definitions matter in debate, how terms can shift mid-discussion, why pinning down meanings can reduce evasiveness. That is a genuinely communicative contribution. Similarly, at 1834 to 1848, he praises the attempt to secure shared definitions before proceeding. In principle, that aligns with Pangburn communication. Fruitful dialectic often does require operational clarity. He also makes a fair observation at 1303 to 1316 that culture is difficult to define with precision, that is communicatively mature insofar as it acknowledges the limits of language. So, that's some of the good stuff. Now we get to the major failures. The issue is that he applies these standards selectively. At 1832 to 914, he says leftists spend their time, quote, pretending not to know what opponents mean. At 1008 to 1016, he claims destiny is pretending he doesn't know what Konstantin means. At 2242 to 2254, he says destiny lost the point and started pretending to not know what was going on. This is repeated motive attribution. He is not merely saying, I think Destiny's questions were unhelpful. He is claiming to know the internal strategy, pretense, bad faith, deliberate derailment. Pangburn communication requires caution here. Bad faith exists, but it should not be assigned casually or as a default explanation. At 057 to 105, 1256, 1822 to 1831, and 2825 to 2841, the reviewer relies heavily on insult language. That is contrary to the communication maxim. Helpful dialectic does not require politeness theater, but it does require avoiding needless degradation. He also fails to steelman. A stronger communicator would have paused to say something like, here is the best version of Destiny's concern. He may be asking whether raw numerical novelty tells us anything normative without a baseline, a denominator, or theory of harm. Even if he ultimately rejected that argument, presenting it fairly would have greatly improved his communication score here. So the summary is he sees some real communication pathologies in debate, especially around definitions and equivocation, but he does not model the dialectical virtue he claims to value. His commentary is more prosecutorial than helpful. So his score is another failing grade, a 4.2 out of 10 for communication. Patience. The maxim, ultimate patience even in the face of detestable ideas. The core judgment here is that there is low patience, not the very lowest possible, but clearly low. The supporting evidence here at 12:56 after the, quote, "Are you pretending to be a moron?" exchange, the reviewer comments, "So he definitely is one." That is a direct endorsement of contempt in the middle of interpretation. At 14:04 to 14:12, he says Konstantin has to, quote, "parent destiny." At 1822 to 1831, he says Destiny's speech becomes, quote, "meth jaw, mouth breathing prattle." At 2345, he says, "not much to argue about unless, of course, you're a progressive." At 2825 to 2841, he extends the mockery into identity-coded caricature. At 2903 to 2922, he says, "we should never be deceived for 1 second into thinking that they are making a respectable point." This is not patience under disagreement. This is impatience converted into style. Why this matters in Pangburn terms. Patience is not passivity. Pangburn patience allows one to confront falsehood, stupidity, manipulation, and harmful ideas without collapsing into contempt. It is one of the hardest virtues precisely because some ideas do in fact seem outrageous. This is where the virtue matters most. This reviewer does not hold that line well. He often moves from criticism to derision. So the patient summary here, he can stay on topic, but he does not maintain emotional generosity or dialectical forbearance. The score is low because contempt repeatedly leaks into his evaluative style. So the score is a dreadfully low patient score at 3.4 out of 10. Then we move to light-heartedness. Refine and express your sense of humor. Core judgment. He does have humor, but it is mostly mocking humor, not refined light-heartedness. Supporting evidence. There are clear attempts at comedic delivery throughout the transcript. Blue-haired, mouth-breathing liberal type at 105, at 1 minute and 5 seconds. The sarcastic, well done, good. So we've got there then, commentary around the exchange. Meth jaw, mouth breathing prattle at 1822 to 1831. If I put on some blue hair tomorrow and got my septum pierced at 2225 to 2836. So he is not humorless. He has comic instinct, rhythm, exaggeration, and audience awareness. But Pangburn lightheartedness is not just being funny. It is refined humor that helps prevent rigidity, tribal tension, and pomposity. The reviewer's humor often functions less as lightness and more as in-group sneering. There is a difference between humor that keeps ego soft and humor that hardens factional identity. Most of this joking here does the latter. So a little point here, why the score is not lower. He does at least avoid being flat and dead serious in every moment. He has some performative energy, some timing, some color that gives him a better score than someone who is humorless and we can just say humorless. But because the humor is mostly contempt driven, it does not score highly on the Pangburn version of lightheartedness. So the summary is he has wit, but not specifically refined wit, more derisive and than playful. So it is another failing grade of 4.6 out of 10. And finally, inspiration. The corresponding maxim, let art and science inspire. The core judgment is very low here. The reviewer shows little evidence in the transcript of being meaningfully inspired by either art or science. Supporting evidence, he does refer to empirical claims and media reports, demographic figures, immigration counts, RAF article, claims about NMN, NAD, and research in mice. But he does not engage these in a genuinely scientific spirit. He uses them mainly, you know what? That thing about mice, I think, is about the sponsor. Interesting. Okay, that was an interesting little note there that I will update in the system. But he does not engage these in genuinely scientific spirit. He uses them mainly as rhetoric ammunition, it says here sponsorship content. The sponsor section, 429 to 532, is especially telling. It references Tony Robbins, Special Forces, Daily Mail reporting, David Sinclair, mice, NMN, NAD, mitochondrial function, and so on. But the tone is not scientific curiosity. It is marketing narration. There is no sign of careful methodological interest, dosage caution, replication concern, or distinction between mouse studies and human outcomes. Okay, it's critiquing the sponsorship part here too. Likewise, the use of demographic and political claims throughout the review is not especially scientific. It is assertive and not exploratory. And on the art side, there's basically nothing here. No aesthetic sensitivity, no literary framing, no historical cultural depth beyond political talking points. So the inspiration summary here, he uses empirical sounding material, but mostly instrumentally. There is little sign that science or art are actually animating his mind in a Pangburnian sense. So the inspiration score is his lowest score at a 2.7 out of 10. And what he would do to update the inspiration score from a Pangburn perspective would be to make scientific citations and references, the science of language, for example. There's just a seemingly endless amount of information that could be used to support some of the claims he is making. But it is completely, it's a wasteland when it comes to signs of artistic and scientific inspiration with regards to this individual in this video. So the final score is a 3.9 out of 10 from a Pangburn Virtue scorecard perspective. And let's get the overall Pangburn verdict here. This reviewer is not empty. He has some genuine strengths. He notices definitional drift. He values debate structure. He sees how semantic games can derail substance. He has rhetorical clarity and a strong speaking persona. But his virtues are dragged down by major deficits. Low fallibilism due to confidence and motive attribution, low patience due to contempt and ridicule, weak communication virtue because he does not extend good faith interpretive clarity evenly, low inspiration because art and science seem mostly instrumental, not animating. His best trait here is probably that he is trying to talk about real argumentative mechanics rather than pure vibes. His worst trait is that he does so with a heavily tribal lens that keeps collapsing his analysis into mockery and certainty. In Pangburn terms, he is a decent example of someone who may have debate instincts without enough dialectical virtue. Okay. Some of you made it through all that with me. So that's the full analysis stream for today. 3 hours and 11 minutes. Someone said Rattlesnake seemed to have an English accent. Yeah, no, I was speaking the Konstantin Kisin point with the accent. Thank you all for joining me for this. I think it's very important and needed for this level of analysis to be done on content, especially content that seems to have some amount of propaganda going on, and propaganda, I think, is dangerous to the war of ideas. You know, the war of ideas, ideally, I see as a good faith, helpful battleground, and propaganda is not a good faith endeavor. It is a sneaky endeavor. It can leave people none the wiser as to being fed misinformation. So let's be on the lookout for that. I'm going to be doing more of these analysis reviews of this particular debate, and I think it's very much worthwhile. Thank you all so much for being here. Make sure you're out there maximizing well-being for yourself and those around you. And as always, let art and science inspire. Love you, Dal. Love you, Robin. Love you, everyone. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Make sure you drop a like before you leave on the stream. We'll see you soon.